Ceci n'est pas une pipe.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two Mikes, and it's a pretty big night here tonight because of all the things that are going on. It's time to say a very good morning to Mr. Mike, a Porky Parry. Very good morning to Mr. Parry.
And a very good morning to you, Michael, as well. Yeah, I mean, hot off the rattler back from Whitley Bay, where we thought we might share a few tales with our friends about our adventures in the North East.
Yes.
There are far more important things happening in the world.
Bigger fish to fry. Speaking of frying, is Sam Allardyce in the frying pan? I mean, I wonder.
Yeah. I tell you what, this is the very, very last thing that the Football Association wanted. Now, at the FA, they've got a new head of communications, Amanda Doherty, friend of mine and great operator.
Well, she's going to be quite busy.
She's going to be very busy indeed, and she's not, unused to handling big stories. She was in control of things at Arsenal for many years, and close to the start of Arsene Wenger's reign there, and all the sort of controversy. The new ground, the new stadium, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And so she's very able, but this is the last thing you want because England have got another game coming up. You won't believe it.
Well, he's got a press conference in a week, isn't he?
Exactly. What I'm saying is, you wouldn't believe it. We're only like 2 weeks away from the second international break of the season. Yeah. We've only played 5 or 6 games. The Cubs have only played 6 games. Yeah. So it's a nuisance. But the only way to handle this now, because communications in sport are now so sophisticated. In the old days, you could have got away with it. You could have said, no comment, or you could have put out a statement to the Press Association and said, excuse me, we are investigating the allegations, reported in the paper, we have nothing more to say until then. Yeah. Because that's the way it used to work. Yeah. Now it doesn't, because as you quite rightly say, the first minute Sam puts his head above the parapet to talk about the selection of his next squad against Malta. Yeah. When...
well, because Malta's a nothing game anyway, so what are they going to say? How are you going to combat, the great right winger coming down? Who are you going to put down there at left back?
I think, that'll be about young players getting into the squad, like Rashford, instead of the under-21, put him in the full squad and they'll talk about that. Yeah. But the difficulty here is that the FA have got to have answers before that happens. Yeah. I mean, what I would
because
do...
I don't want to let him walk into a press conference next Sunday, which was scheduled to be after the last Premier League fixtures the weekend. That's right. And have him be thrown to the lions, basically.
No, what I would do, but you'll find there will be people at the Football Association who will resist this. Yeah. Because there's still a load of people at the FA who say, no, the best thing to do is shut the door, pull the shutters down on the window, and don't let the world...
Siege mentality.
Yeah, siege mentality. Don't let the world interfere with what we're doing here. What you've got to do, and this is where Amanda will now be in, I should think, fairly vigorous debate with people there. By the way, I couldn't even remember who the new chairman of the FA is on the way in tonight because, of course...
Because Greg Dyke is gone.
Dyke's gone. Have they got a new one
leaving his legacy behind.
Yeah, I don't think they have, actually.
I think they have.
I think a few candidates have been put up. I don't think anyone's been appointed. No. So, that's down to the chief executive, himself, whose name I've just forgotten. I'm talking about. Who? The gentleman who, it became very controversial. Sorry, I'll name him for you in a minute. But anyway, the point of the story is, what I would do if I was in charge is, first of all, I'd sit down with Sam tomorrow. Yeah. You'd have to, if you're in charge of communications. I'd go through every line, Telegraph story.
Well, surely the entire FA will want to sit down with Sam as well. I mean, regardless of what they say to the press. I mean, they need to get Sam Allardyce into the building and say, what the hell's been going on? Yes. And what have you been doing?
Well, yeah, but I mean, first of all, I'm talking from the point of view of responding publicly to the allegations.
Well, yeah, but that's less important than how the FA responded.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. It's most important,
No,
Mike.
it's not. No,
it's most important.
You're putting the cart before the horse.
No, I'm not.
As far as I'm concerned.
No, I'm not.
That's a question for the FA. But what the FA now have to do is they have to examine their recruitment process, because the question I will want to know is, did at any time when they interviewed him for the job or when they appointed him, did they say, by the way, we have to make it very clear that as long as you're the England manager, you can't get involved in any outside commercial enterprises?
Well, he can get involved in outside commercial enterprises. There's not a problem with that. First thing Terry Venables did when he got the job as England manager was sign about half a dozen advertising deals. Yellow Pages, NCP car parks, a watch deal. There's no bar on that.
But since Terry Venables was no longer the England manager, you would have thought they might tighten up a bit on that.
There's no bar on it.
Well,
no
there
bar
should be, shouldn't there?
Well, you say there should be, but there isn't. They part of the role of being a prominent sporting person in charge of a prominent sporting body is you cash in on it. Everybody does it. Right. Not just Sam Allardyce. What we're talking about here is going beyond that. There's no harm at all in Sam Allardyce signing up to do 4 lectures at £100,000 a lecture in the Far East talking about football. No problem whatsoever.
Okay. I think there should be, frankly.
Okay, well, you think...
Because if you're paying the manager £3 million a year, which is a little bit less than Roy Hodgson was getting, but still not a bad wage, I don't think he should pay. I don't think he should do anything like that.
Well, that's not the issue. The issue is this. The issue is that way beyond that, he's had conversations with these people who have been luring him with this vast amount of money for doing what sounds like very little, into talking off the record about other matters which directly affect the running of football in this country and may well be under examination a breach of the rules of the game. Yeah. So that's what the big issue is all about.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And I mean, I'm not belittling what you're suggesting that the press office and the press people have to do.
Well, they have to.
Obviously, they have to do that. But from the England fans' point of view and from everybody else's point of view, surely the first port of call is for Sam Allardyce to go and sit before the bosses. And I'm told that Martin Glenn actually is the chief executive.
Martin Glenn, of course,
they have to sit in front of Martin Glenn and answer the allegations one by one. And I would say, because of the fact that he's shown extremely poor judgment, actually answer the question, which would be my first question, what on earth were you thinking going to meet these people?
Yeah, but the thing is, Mike, while all that's going on, and you're right in that process has got to happen, but I think that's got to happen with Amanda and Mr. Glenn. They've got to do it together. The questions are piling in. And the longer the questions pile in and they're not answered, the more the veil of suspicion will extend and grow over the FA.
I get that.
So she's got to respond in some way.
I get that, but she doesn't work for Sam Allardyce. She works for the FA, so she cannot get from him something.
That's her job. That's her job.
No, but she can't get from him before what they've got from him, is what I'm saying. What her statement has to come from the FA. Do you not see what I'm saying? It's a difference, isn't it?
Well, I don't see the difference. I'm sorry.
If she sits in a room with Sam Allardyce, then she has to go to the FA then and say, this is what Sam Allardyce says. This is the press release I'm due to give out.
She may be given that responsibility. I used to be given that responsibility. When I was at the FA and the Merson situation, blew up, I went to see Paul and sat down with him and said, what's going on here?
Why didn't they have him in?
Well, look, the point is...
No, that's ridiculous.
No, it's not ridiculous.
Yes, it is.
It's not ridiculous because you have to remember what they're dealing with are allegations in a newspaper. Yeah. And Amanda Doherty and the chief of communications of the FA are trained and skilled communicators who then read into the paper and interpret it and then go to Sam and say, what does that paragraph mean? What does this paragraph mean? What does that mean? And she gets a full story. Right. Then she goes to Mr. Glenn and says, look, this is the breakdown.
The wrong way round for me.
Well, do you expect Mr. Glenn to interrogate
absolutely.
him? On the basis of what?
I would expect that the chief executive of the FA will call Sam Allardyce into his office tomorrow and he may well have Amanda sitting there so that she can listen to the conversation. Yeah. But surely it's the responsibility of the man who hired him to say, we need to know what you were doing here.
But Mr. Glenn can't interpret newspaper reports like
she can be there with him. That's the point. This is really the wrong argument. We shouldn't be going in and out of whether how that works.
Well, I only mentioned to you how things should happen.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with it. I'm just saying I think it's the wrong way round. Well, and that's probably why the FA's got such a massive problem.
Yeah, well, they have got a massive problem because whichever way they do it, they've got to do something quick.
Yeah, because what it looks like, and I mean, on the sports bar, they were arguing about, what's he said that's bad, what's he said that's illegal, what's he done that's illegal. Yes. That's not the issue for me. The issue for me is that he's shown extremely poor judgment by actually going to meet these people and to speak so openly, as you were saying earlier, and so naively about things. I mean, nobody really cares that he makes fun of Roy Hodgson. I don't think that's a big thing. The FA might have a slight irritation about the fact that he said that Wembley was a terrible deal, which it was, so he's not wrong about that. Yes. But to talk about, I mean, the front page of the Telegraph has been wiped out, right, which it doesn't normally do. And it's a big headline that says, England manager for sale. Sam Allardyce negotiates £400,000 fee, then gives advice on avoiding FA transfer payment rules to businessmen he just met. Yeah, sure. And the important thing is that this meeting took place in August, less than a month after he was appointed England manager, before they even played the first game. Yeah. I mean, let's talk about this as well, because Andy sent this in, and I'm sure there'll be people who will feel the same way. Is this not another example of our problem? Press always at the England manager and players. Interested in your opinion as two old hacks. Well, I don't agree with that at all. No, I don't either, Andy, because the point is that sting operations are done on a regular basis, not to embarrass people, but to show what people will do when they're in a room with someone offering them money. And if you don't want to know about that as an England fan, and you don't want to know about that as a member of the public, then I think you're being extremely naive.
No, of course I'm being naive. The point is, what is the problem with testing the integrity and the character and the believability factor of the England manager? Yeah. That should be done. In my view, that should be done before he's appointed, and that's why I was asking you about the interview process. Well, you give him a couple of situations, because then you could come back to him today. If you said, I would say to him, like, as you are now
now the England manager, we expect a very high level of integrity.
Yeah, well, does that go without saying, though?
Well, no, it doesn't. I think in this day and age, you have to be very careful.
I think it does.
And I think you would give them a couple of examples and say, we just want to make it clear, if you are approached, as you probably will be, by unscrupulous people...
No, you can't say
Why
that.
Not?
Well, how can you assume you're going to be approached by unscrupulous people?
Because the football business is full of them. Right? And as a club manager, he will know that, right? I mean, these people were brought to him by his agent.
Yeah,
right.
But quite honestly, anybody who's taking the England job and who doesn't believe in scrupulously, honest behaviour shouldn't be in the job anyway.
Would you describe what he's done as scrupulously honest?
And this is why I think the Telegraph have done a very valuable investigation there, because they didn't just focus on Sam. This is a 10-month investigation into morals and behaviour within football, of which so far, as we know, Sam Allardyce has become the biggest focal point of what they've discovered in their investigation.
But they're also going to have stories in the following few days about basically what some Premier League managers have been up to.
Are they?
They are.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's
good.
Now,
whether they're going to name these people, we don't know. But I can read you what they're proposing is going to happen and what they're going to be doing. We'll be doing that very shortly. But if the FA handle this very, very quickly and it all goes away, and these are the only allegations that are left in there, I still think there's going to be some kind of a bad smell about it all. We want to hear from some of you out there. 08717 22 3344. I mean, we could be looking for a New England manager in a week if this escalates.
Oh, you could, definitely. But I mean, also, remember, this has happened before. We said earlier on when we were talking to Andy and Jason, I mean, Sven-Göran Eriksson fell into exactly the same trap. And that was an even more ridiculous and exotic setting. It was a sheikh on a boat, come on, Sven, and all that. Now, these guys realise that actually, although they are the England manager, people don't shower £400,000 worth of favours on people unless they want something very, very much more than just standing up and giving a speech in return.
Yeah, exactly right. So, we're going to talk about Sam Allardyce. We're going to talk about the Clinton-Trump debate coming up later on as well. There's an NFL game, there's listography, there's all sorts going on. This is TalkSport. We are the two mics. Lots going on tonight. Very, very busy show, and we're going to get stuck into the Sam Allardyce story. Here's what the Telegraph was saying, Mike. The Telegraph began investigating corruption in English football last year after receiving information that specific managers, officials and agents were taking or receiving cash payments to secure player transfer.
Right.
And then they say that over the coming days, which tells you that, as usual with these investigations, there's going to be a whole series of claims that are going to be made, allegations are going to be made. They're going to allege that an assistant manager of a high-profile football club accepted a £5,000 cash bung.
Right.
That 10 managers were named by players' agents as taking bribes to fix players' transfers.
Yes.
2 well-known managers discussed becoming ambassadors for the same fictitious firm as Sam Allardyce. Another high-profile manager admitted his players broke FA rules by betting on their own games, but he failed to report it. And then a senior figure at a Premier League club helped undercover reporters to formulate a plan to bribe managers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where there's money, there's corruption, right? We all know that.
Of course.
We all know that.
Yes.
But you don't expect the guy who's become the England manager to get himself involved in it.
No, I totally agree.
He should have refused to meet anybody. He should have said to his agent, who apparently introduced them without knowing that they were fake, undercover investigators.
Yes.
He should have said, look, I'm the England manager now. I can't talk to people like that. Yeah. That's what he should have said.
I tell you what, it was a very embarrassing advert going out for the next England game at the moment, and it's Sam Allardyce saying on it, my first game at Wembley will be very, very special to me. Well, it might be special.
Let's see if he gets there.
If he gets there, yeah.
Because you never know.
What I'm saying is, you're absolutely right. What you just said. Big Sam got the job on the basis that he wanted it so much. He wanted it for years. Yeah. I mean, he wanted it when it went
to Hodgson.
Of course, he wanted it even before that, and he'd always said it's the pinnacle of my career. He suddenly gets it, and then, as you quite rightly say, how stupid to, even if
less than a month in.
Well, I'm saying even if at the end of the day he's cleared of any impropriety, okay, because these are newspaper reports, how silly to allow himself to get into a position where he was even under suspicion.
I know, absolutely incredible. Let's take a call. Christian is a Man United fan. Let's hear from him. Christian, good morning to you.
Hi guys, just to let you know, you are brilliant.
Thank you.
I think you're fantastic. Just to say, you just put the words out of my mouth, Porky. Yeah. Basically, he was delighted getting the England manager's job. Delighted, like it was the best job he could ever get. And then he does this. Yeah. It's a joke.
Well, I mean, particularly the timing, Christian. I mean, he wasn't even in the job a month, and he's already meeting these people. He's agreeing to go to Singapore. He's agreeing to go to Hong Kong. I mean,
doesn't the FA have some kind of contract saying you should be doing this and you should be doing that and you should be doing that?
Do you know what? It's interesting you say that, Christian. One of the problems with being the England manager is that England managers have far too much time on their hands, OK? Far too much time. Sometimes they can go months without getting a group of players together, and so they always look for their opportunities to do things. Now, that's not wrong. Terry Venables was a great shaker and mover, and he got involved in all sorts of business deals. Unfortunately, Terry also got sucked into situations which needed explaining, and that's why, in the end, he stepped down from his job, because he was going to have to actually clear himself of allegations made in a Panorama programme.
Because apart from anything else, you don't want the England manager to be the subject of these kind of reports, do you?
You don't. So what I'm saying is, just to develop your point, Christian, is that you've got the England job now, you've wanted it for 20 years, it's the pinnacle of your career. For goodness sake, don't then decide that after 20 years of wanting the job, actually, as well as wanting the job, it's actually a good cash cow, this, to sort of, jump onto the old money bankrolling bandwagon and make myself a few more £1 million on top of the 3 million I've got.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
We're moving aside from the Sam Allardyce issue. Who would you vote for in the American presidential, Donald Trump or Clinton?
Well, the answer to that one for me is, thank God I'm not American at the moment. I don't have to vote.
They say that as well.
Right, you're very on the.
Whatever. Yeah. No problem.
Now, let me ask you a question, Christian. Do you think, as a result of what Sam Allardyce has done, regardless of how much of it turns out to be, shall we say, wrong, because it's always a bit woolly when you talk about finding loopholes to get around rules, I'm of the opinion that anyone who's got this judgment that is this bad, you can't keep the job. What do you think?
Well, I don't think it'd be a good idea to get him sacked just yet. I think you can have one mistake, and then if he does it again, then get rid of him. But it would be a bit harsh for him to.
Okay.
It doesn't do anyone get any good to get another appointment. Who would you get? Who
well, you see, but that's not a reason. That's never been a reason not to sack someone, because you can't think of who else to give the job to.
Yeah, well, true,
what if he shot somebody and you go, well, we can't really sack him, we haven't got anyone else to put in the job?
That's slightly different. But, yeah. Do
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. But shooting someone and going over...
Yeah, but you still have the same problem.
Yeah,
you can't, you'd say, well, we don't know whether to give somebody who else we're going to get.
I think the other point here, Christian, as well, and I direct this at Mike as well, my co-presenter here, is it shows a complete contempt for your employer apart from anything else, because not only are you, advising people, according to these reports in the Telegraph, on how to get around the rules for third-party ownership, Mike, but when you're dissing the guy they appointed as last in your job, I know it's only tittle-tattle and talk, but, when you're putting down Roy Hodgson and calling him war, and when you're saying they shouldn't have developed Wembley, that's really stupid, because most of the people who made that decision are still at the FA, that's not a good situation.
No.
It shows
They're not going to like that, are they?
It shows total disloyalty to your employers, who are paying you £3 million a year.
Exactly right. Christian, we're going to let it go there because we've got lots of other people to talk to, but thank you very much indeed. I mean, that's the problem, isn't it? I mean,
yes.
Well, there's nothing wrong with saying that Roy Hodgson was a bit of an old windbag and he wasn't really very good. But if you're employed by the people who used to employ him,
exactly,
you shouldn't really say it.
No, of course you shouldn't, because you're saying, they were mugs there to employ him. They should have employed me in the first place. And also, you've seen what he said about Gary Neville as well.
Yes, where he said, you should have told Gary Neville to sit down and shut up, shouldn't be listening to him, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I mean, it's not very becoming. And I know people will say, well, you're being too old-fashioned about this.
No, not
but
at all.
I don't believe so. I think,
I totally agree.
You absolutely must project a level of professionalism, and that's not professional, and you must be professional.
You've got to project a level of behaviour as well.
Yeah.
Behavioural attitudes to a job are very, very important, because what he's doing in slagging off the FA, as well as let's get beyond the third-party ownership stuff.
Yeah.
But slagging off the FA when you work for them, they're paying you £3 million a year, is completely undermining the FA's authority.
Well, that's
because all he's doing is adding to the general perception in this country that the FA are a bunch of mugs.
Right. Which I think everybody does think.
Exactly.
I mean, you've worked there. And
yeah.
as you say, there's going to be plenty of people there who will be doing the old-fashioned, pull the blinds down, shut the doors, don't say anything. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be fascinating to see how they deal with it, because we'll find out if, in fact, the FA has changed since your day, so whether they've become a more modern organisation.
Well, they have become more modern, we know that. Whether they are prepared to take this on and literally grasp the nettle, because they've got to. When you and I opened this conversation about how involved will the communications director have to be, I say very much so, because you can't allow this to drag on 24, 48, 72 hours. It's got to be jumped on tomorrow. And they've got to issue a statement by this, by, I would say, close of play tomorrow, 5 o'clock tomorrow, saying this is what we're doing. Yeah. I mean, they may come to the decision, actually, we've got to suspend Sam Allardyce until these allegations are thoroughly, explored and he's responded and all that.
And that would be my view, actually, because I'm not calling for him to be sacked tomorrow. I think it would be naive and stupid as well.
No.
But I think this is very, very much more serious than many people think. Let's talk to Ian. He's also a Man United fan in Plymouth. Hello, Ian.
All right, Porky.
Hello, Ian.
Yeah, hello, mate. How are you? What would you like to say?
Yeah, I'm good. I'd like to say that shouldn't Sam Allardyce just be judged on his results as an England manager? I know that you two, scandalous.
It's not us that's creating this. It's not us that creating a scandal, Ian. It's the England manager creating his own scandal for himself.
I know, but in your past, and I love your radio station as it is now. But in the past, you have loved to peddle the odd scandal.
Well, no, all we've ever done. We've only ever peddled scandal that has been created by other people.
Do you think that Venables left to just manage the England football team? Do you think that he could have had the best results in our lifetime as an England manager?
Maybe. Terry was a very good coach. But I mean, what's the point of you asking this question? What are you talking about?
I'm just thinking that this just detracts away from, should he not be judged on his results on the field and not... I mean, I understand what you're saying off the field, but really...
Well, what about a man's integrity?
What he can achieve on the field or off the field?
Hang on, Ian. I mean, what about a man's integrity? This man is at the pinnacle of the football pyramid in this country. He is the number one banana.
The whole thing was about Venables' integrity.
I'm not talking about Venables. Forget that, Ian.
You know what? I would have... There's so many people like Ericsson's integrity. Forget their integrity. What do they do?
No, you can't forget a man's integrity.
Hoddle's integrity, whether he was being a faith healer or not.
Sam Allardyce.
There was no question of Glenn Hoddle's integrity. Glenn Hoddle was fired from his job because of something that he said, which was something he believed, which the FA bosses thought was untenable, and which was a view. Hang on, which was that's absolute rubbish, Ian. The press did not say anything at all. The press reported an interview. Excuse me, Ian. Excuse me. Glenn Hoddle was interviewed by the Times, right? The Times quoted what he said, and he, as a result of what he said, he was recorded, Ian.
Well, apparently,
for God's sake, man,
the Beatles were bigger than Jesus. But
yeah, Ian, you're on the wrong tack here, mate.
Have you not smoking anything strange?
Hold on, before you cut me off, do you not think that Allardyce should be judged on his results on the pitch?
No, I think
not just on the results. Not just on the results. Ian's talking absolute cobleros.
You're way off beam, mate. Honestly, you are.
He's down in Plymouth. He's been on the grog, I think. Anyway, we'll take some more calls from some more sensible people coming up very shortly, because right now we're just going to have to stop for a moment. We're talking about Sam Allardyce. We will be talking about Clinton and Trump, and lots more besides. This is Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. It's a massive night for us, of course, because not only have we got the biggest US presidential debate in history, which is going to be watched by about 100 million people in America. We'll be keeping you across all of that. We'll have a guest on it later on as well. We've got Sam Allardyce under the cosh, you'd have to say, Mr. Parry.
Oh, definitely.
Because he's being accused on most front pages this morning of being either for sale, involved in dodgy deals. Here's Trevor, who doesn't seem to quite understand the way the world works. He says, Big Sam has done absolutely nothing wrong. And the Telegraph story will just blow away in a day. Gullible two mics. Okay, Trevor, well, I'll tell you what, we'll hear from you in a couple of days' time and see how things are going. Yeah,
I mean, believe me, this is not going to blow away overnight. It's a crisis within English football.
It's a crisis within English, and certainly within the FA.
Of course it is. Let's remember, Sam Allardyce is the top man in English football. He's the manager of the England football team. Some may say it doesn't hold the resonance it did when Sir Alf Ramsey was there and won us the World Cup because of the power of the Champions League these days. Don't care. And in international circles, and certainly as a national game here, he's top banana. honour, and he's now under the microscope being accused of improper behaviour.
Yeah.
So it's very serious.
And the speed with which he was willing to get involved in something like this, less than a month after he was appointed England manager, before the first football had been kicked, is a disgrace in my view. Andy says this: I'm going to have to switch off the two mics and get myself checked out at the hospital. I'm actually agreeing with Mike Parry.
Whoa.
Villa Rich says, I'm with you, Mike. Sam's got to go. If the allegations are true, it's an utter disgrace from the England manager. Well, it's not so much for me what he said or what he's offered to do.
Yes.
It's the fact that he's got involved in it at all.
I totally agree
Which
with you.
tells you the guy has no judgment. Yes. Let's talk to Kevin, who's an Everton fan. Kevin, very good morning to you.
Good morning, gentlemen. You all right?
Yeah,
Hello,
very
Kevin,
well, mate. What do you think?
It's a pleasure to speak to you, lads, anyway.
Thank you very much. A pleasure to speak to you too.
Do you know what, boys? Sam Allardyce has been embroiled in this type of thing before.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure he has he?
Well, there was a Panorama investigation a few years ago, wasn't there?
Yeah, but he's still in football. It didn't stain his character or prevent him working. So let's gloss over that one. What do you think about these current allegations, please, Kevin?
Well, to be honest with you, Porky, if it gets found, they're allegedly at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't think he's got a future in the England manager's job.
Yeah.
Well, the thing. Sorry, Kevin, go on.
To me, it smacks of being morally and principally bankrupt. And all it boils down to, as far as I'm concerned, it's greed.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, this guy's making £3 million a year from the FA, right? Why does he even need to supplement his income in this way?
I don't know. I mean, I heard before on the earlier show with Jason Cundy that it was his agent who introduced him to these people.
That's true, but the agent wasn't aware that they were, they were journalists.
Undercover, no.
But again, agents, raising their ugly head in football. I'm going to use a phrase now, and I don't really like using it. I think agents are the cancer of football. They cause an awful lot of trouble.
Well, to be honest, Kev, listen, I understand what you're saying and the reasons why you're saying that. And that was a view in football in the very early days of agents, OK? The problem is now that there is so much money in football and deals are so complicated that actually every club chairman and every manager now will tell you football cannot work any longer without agents. It just can't. It's impossible.
A quick one.
Yeah.
Just a quick one, boys, before I go.
Yeah.
I'll throw a whole new light on it, and in general life and in life in the streets or whatever.
Yeah.
I always thought it was a crime to entice a crime.
You mean entrapment?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is not entrapment. What they're doing is they are testing the water. They're perfectly entitled to. They go and they speak to Sam Allardyce. They say, do you want to do 4 great lectures for us at £100,000 a time? Yes. Getting engaged in conversation, they are then perfectly entitled to talk to Sam Allardyce, the man at the top of English football, about the way football works.
But no one's committed a crime here either.
No, of course nobody's committed a crime. They have asked Sam Allardyce about a particular situation, whether it's transfers, whether it's agents' fees, whether it's third-party ownership. He's responded in this way. So nobody's entrapping anybody here. We are trying to find out what is going on behind the scenes in English football, and these guys have done a service to football.
Yeah, I think they have. Kevin, listen, thanks for your call. We've got to move on because we've got quite a lot of people who want to talk to us. How about this from Zobol, who says the Allardyce allegation is sad, but everyone should wait until the investigation outcome instead of judging him now. Well, Zobol, I'm afraid, you judge people by their actions, right?
Yes.
There is no doubt that Sam Allardyce has met with these people. There is no doubt that they have recorded it on a secret camera. There is no doubt of the things I'm sure that they're quoting him as saying, because that will also be on the recording that they have made.
Yeah.
Whether or not you think the things he said are actionable and the FA should deal with it is up to you. My view is that you should never have met with them in the first place.
Well, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Now, there's a great message here. I think it's a text. It says, this comes from just somebody called IMO, I'm sorry, but it says, if the allegations are true, then it completely calls into question Allardyce's character and makes his position untenable. Now, is that your view?
That's basically my view, yes. Yeah.
And I'm struggling to argue against that, to be honest, because as you quite rightly say, judgment is all over the place to get involved in the first place.
Exactly.
The views he's expressed are contrary.
Oh, not views that he should be making public. Let's put
contrary
it that way.
to what we would expect from an England manager. Yeah. And the third point is that actually the condemnation of his own employers on several issues leaves a very bad taste in the mouth.
And also, let's mention the fourth thing, which is not the fact that any of the things that he said, but the fact that he did this so swiftly after being appointed. I mean, I know that might not make much difference to many people, but if it had happened a year after he'd become the England manager, somehow it wouldn't have seemed so horribly greedy and bad.
Really? Do you think so?
Yeah.
To me, it's a
well,
bit
it's like you being appointed the head of an organisation, because he is basically the head of an organisation.
Of course he is, and then taking immediate advantage of
it. Well, within 2 or 3 weeks of having got that done, you're off on some freebie talking to some people about how you can make some money on the side.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't look very good. Let's talk to James in Manchester. Hi, James. Hello, James.
Hello, James.
Hey, you all right?
Yeah. What do you want to say, James?
I just want a bit of sort of guidance, because obviously you two guys are in the know about Fleet Street. I think the Telegraph here, they've gone on a bit of a fishing trip. They've put this out initially, waiting for the FA to come out and back him, and then they're going to finish him off later on in the week with some more serious allegations.
Well, certainly.
No, I don't think that's true.
Well, I disagree with you, Mike. Not necessarily more serious allegations, but there will certainly be more stuff. Because you're absolutely right. They tend to drip feed these things out.
Yeah, but I think you'll find that they've started this on the best stuff they've got, James. That's what you always do in investigation, right?
So
I think you'll find these are the most explosive.
That's not what they did with the politicians' expenses.
Well, hang on. All I would say is this. This is the most explosive stuff they've got so far. Now, what sometimes happens, James, and this is a par for life, not just journalism, other people inside the world of football might know things that they feel the Daily Telegraph should know about this situation. Do you see what I mean?
I see what you mean. If you were the communications director then still, Porky, would you go offensively and attack these allegations, or would you just let it settle?
Well, I wouldn't attack the allegations if they're true. If the allegations are true, you should not attack them, because if you do that,
not attack the allegations, but offer a robust
respond. No, I'd respond to them. I mean, look, if the allegations are true, and that's the first thing you've got to establish. That's why I said at the start of the show, somebody's got to sit down with Sam Allardyce, and that should be a professional inquisitor like the Director of Communications. Find out if all this is completely accurate. If it is, go to Mr. Glenn, the Chief Executive, and say, this is all completely accurate. How do you want to respond? Then you respond and say, we're going to have a detailed meeting. The easiest way to try and pull the lid down on this is to say, we've ordered an in-depth probe, and it could take 3 weeks.
Well, it'll be like what you used to say to Graham Kelly.
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah, of course I've done an I've got an internal investigation ongoing, Graham, and we'll see if we can find the culprit. Yeah, but all the time it was him.
Yeah, but exactly. I'm afraid this will not go away. And in a modern world, you see, of 24-hour television and all that, it can't go away. They've got to respond.
I obviously have to defer to your experience, Porky, but my gut instinct says at the end of the week, they're going to come out, they're going to defend him, and then they're going to move in, and then they're going to put the golden bullet on him.
Well, they might. I mean,
what do you mean, a golden bullet?
Yeah.
I think that they could have something that explosive.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Behind, and then they're going to go in after the FA have backed him, and then it's not just his neck on the line; it'll be.
Okay.
Well,
well, I mean, that may well be the case. I mean, I think
I'd be surprised if that was their tactics, to be honest. But I'm not ruling it out.
But don't forget what they're also going to have throughout the course of this week is they're going to have many more allegations about the football business in this country in general, of which Sam Allardyce has been a part for a long time. So it's going to be fascinating to see. But James, listen, I appreciate your call. I mean, the problem for me is that if say the FA decide that nothing in any of this is terribly serious, and they don't need to get rid of him or suspend him or do anything else. I mean, if they come out and basically say, Sam Allardyce remains the England manager,
that's right.
What kind of a message does that send out?
The other thing as well, Mike, and you know this as well as I do, is that once other allegations start coming out, people then thrash out all over the place, and they could very well say, well, I might have done this, but I can tell you something. You did a report about Sam Allardyce the other day. What you didn't include in that was, because a lot of people inside football will know the inner machinations of the way transfers have worked. I mean, as you've pointed out already, it looks like there's going to be a load of stuff about inducements for managers to sign certain players and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. Well, managers are quite a close-knit club of people. Yeah. And if one of them gets fingered and said, pointed out and in print and all that, they could easily hit back and say, yeah, but hang on, you say I did that, but I know somebody who did this, and one of them might be another popular name. That's the way it goes.
Because let's not forget, the FA are the overarching administrative body of football in this country.
Of course they are.
So all of the other allegations about what may be going on in other areas of football, I mean, that's down to them as well.
Of course it is.
And it's their responsibility to police that.
You're absolutely right. The Premier League is the power base in this country. They're the people who generate all the money. Richard Scudamore generates literally billions of pounds, distributes it to the clubs. But the people who hold the rule book, you know, the laws of football were drawn up in 1863 and have rarely changed since. They are coded by the Football Association, and their code of laws was replicated around the world. FIFA are now in charge of distributing them around the world and enforcing them. But the FA are the custodians of football in this country, and if the rules have been breached, they have to act. And if the rules have been breached by somebody who they employ, then it's even more imperative for them to act.
Well, I mean, the FA banned the practice of what they call, third-party ownership of footballers because they called it slavery, basically. Yeah. And that was outlawed by the FA in 2008, right? It was then outlawed by FIFA in 2015.
Yes, it was.
He's saying, don't worry, I can get around that.
Yeah, I know.
It's not just the FA, it's FIFA.
Yes, it is, but it is FIFA. But as you say, that particular procedure was initiated and led by the Football Association. So they're going to be a bit upset that they, beat the drum for so many years until FIFA came on board. Yeah. And now it looks, according to these reports, like it's being dissed by their own manager.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is rubbish.
Well, it is. It doesn't look good at all.
Yeah.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. We're only about 10 minutes away from the Trump-Clinton debate kicking off. We've got an NFL game on, the Atlanta Falcons against the New Orleans Saints on the anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. It's 7-0 to New Orleans. I know that may seem like a very minor point. We've also got Tim Vickery here, of course, as that music would suggest, to talk about a great many things, including third-party ownership of footballers. Tim, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Michael. I hope the pair of you are enjoying the interesting times in which we're living.
Well, I mean, we always enjoy ourselves, no matter whether the times, even if the times are not interesting, we try and make them as interesting as possible. But we were going to talk to you about the Champions League coming up this week, but we've been slightly hijacked by the Sam Allardyce story because, of course, the first person I thought to talk to about this was you, because this third-party ownership arrangement business, you and I have had many conversations about. Sam Allardyce says, despite FIFA outlawing it in 2015, he's got plenty of ways of getting around it. What do you make of that?
I think it's just absolutely extraordinary, and I'm going to pump you for info now because I'm going to be on Brazilian TV tomorrow morning, and obviously we're going to be talking about this. Yeah, but I would think this makes his position absolutely untenable, and it's like, what are your views on that?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, I've said previously, just in the first hour of the show, I mean, Mike's not perhaps quite as hardline as I am on it. I mean, regardless of what he said, the fact that he even met these people less than a month into his new job as England manager, with a view to kind of making money outside of the $3 million that he makes already from the FA. The fact that he dissed the FA is less important than the fact that he met these guys. The fact that he says he can get around rules which the FA have put into place. The fact that he said that Wembley was a disaster and they should never have got into that much debt, and all of those things. I mean, the fact that he said any of that is less important to me than the fact that he got himself in this situation, because his judgment is clearly in question.
Well, yeah, I think he's allowed to have opinions on Wembley and on Roy Hodgson and on Gary Neville and all the rest of it.
Well, hang on, Tim. Sorry, he's allowed to have an opinion on Roy Hodgson, but remember Roy Hodgson was appointed by the same people who've appointed him, right? And remember, when you go around talking to a bunch of strangers and mocking your predecessor by calling him Woy, and he was no good, he couldn't give speeches and all that, that is not just criticism. That, I'm afraid, is pretty bad behaviour. It's pretty unpalatable, and it shows ignorance and lack of class.
Perhaps, yes, but it's not as big a problem as taking money, which you seem to be prepared to do.
It's an associated problem. This is what I'm saying. It's the whole behavioural pattern of what Sam Allardyce has emerged to be. Obviously led with the money allegations, but it's still bad.
Perhaps, but as far as I can see it, the thing that makes his position untenable is the disposition to have a second salary in order to earn money from being a consultant, talking about ways to circumvent an FA regulation. Now that is, as far as I'm concerned, that's a huge conflict of interests.
But I don't think it's like that. Sorry, Tim. You said you wanted us to fill in on. That's not the position. The position is he was being offered £400,000 for 4 speeches at £100,000 a time. Do you see what I mean? That was the deal that he was going to sign. That was the business.
But he's told these people that these rules can be got around.
Off the record. He thought he was telling them off the record. He wasn't being paid as a consultant to advise them how to get around the rules. They are paying him huge amounts of money. He takes them into his confidence and starts chatting off the record about third-party ownership. He wasn't going to be paid as a consultant to circumnavigate football rules.
Thanks for clearing it up.
Yeah.
But Mike, you worked for the FA, didn't you, for a while?
Yes.
See, I would have thought, as soon as I saw this, it reminded me a little bit of Glenn Hoddle. In that, Glenn Hoddle was sacked for a frankly bizarre comment about disabled people.
Yeah.
But there were big problems there anyway. And Hoddle, it seemed to me, was losing the dressing room because in addition to getting very well paid for being an England coach, he was also writing a book and then serialising it, very well paid, in the tabloids, where he was divulging dressing room secrets. And I would have thought it would be basic in any contracts that the FA signed with a coach after that. You would crack down as much as possible on all extracurricular activities.
But do you know the twist in that one, Tim? You're very right to raise it. The twist in that one was the book was being written and edited by David Davis, who was in fact the executive director of the FA at the time.
Indeed, even more bizarre. But
exactly.
You would have thought that loophole would have been closed subsequently. So there would be, because he's being very, very well paid, Allardyce, to be England coach. So surely any second income, you want to regulate that. You want to have that really, really bolted down.
Yeah.
And,
I said to Mike,
disappointed in the FA if that's not the case.
Well, I said to Mike at the start of the show, what I want to know is, was there a conversation when he was appointed or during the interview process during which it was spelled out to him, under no circumstances can you make any extra income unless you come to us first to ask if it's a conflict of interest or something
if it's
like
not
that.
In a contract, that's very, very poor from the FA.
And if the FA have not had that conversation with someone like Sam Allardyce when they appointed him, then they are very much at fault as well.
Sure.
But I don't think you have to say to a chap when you appoint him such a high-profile job. And by the way, no funny stuff, please, Sam.
Well, of course you do.
Do you?
Of course you do.
What do you think, Tim?
Because he may not be aware that
you've got to get it locked down in the contract. Because one thing that a national team coach has is time.
Yeah. Oh, they do. Lots of time on their hands. Lots of time. I agree.
Indeed, and the devil makes work for idle hands to do. Doesn't it? And
and also, there's a phrase, isn't there? There's a phrase which is used sometimes in sporting areas and also in other areas of bringing, whatever it is into disrepute. Have you brought the game into disrepute? Have you brought your company into disrepute? If you work for a multinational company and you do something outside of the rules, which are much stricter and written down, then you're out, basically. Has he brought the FA into disrepute? Has he brought the England sort of setup into disrepute? I would say he has.
Well, yes, and talking to them about ways to circumvent an FA regulation would seem to be a conflict of interest, wouldn't it?
Well, you would think so. And I mean,
there's a clear rule in the FIFA rule book that says you must not indulge in conflicts of interest between what's right for football and your own personal earning power potential.
Well, third-party ownership is now outlawed. So if you are telling people how to get around that, then you are doing something which is contrary to the direction of football as it stands.
You are. Absolutely.
I don't see how that's tenable.
No, I think you've summed that up actually completely right. If you look at that in the cold, hard light of day, that Sam Allardyce seemed, by the way, because I've read all the stuff tonight, he was going to go to the FA. It is said in the stories that the Telegraph have published. He told the people that he would have to go to the FA and clear the position first and get their permission to work for them to do lectures. To do lectures to their investors. Nothing to do with code of ethics, right? But he never did. He had meetings with them lasted up to 4 hours. Never approached the FA, obviously, because the FA would know about it. But then started talking about code of ethics.
Started talking about going to Singapore and Hong Kong as well.
Yes. Well, I think he'd already been.
Let me just ask a quick question, because we haven't got a lot more time.
Yes.
He also brought up the subject of Enner Valencia. And said that was one of the examples of how you could get around these rules, because the FA outlawed third-party ownership in 2008. FIFA outlawed it, as I said, in 2015. So, I mean, apparently it was ended after the Enner Valencia story, but I'm not sure. I just wanted to check with you what the kind of antecedents of all that were.
Well, yeah, and I think it was his financial advisor who said that at the point where West Ham bought Valencia, they bought him whole.
Right.
So they managed to get all of his owners round the table and get them to agree.
But Allardyce's version of that...
What third-party ownership is, it's a little bit like what Ted Heath called the unacceptable face of capitalism back in the 70s.
Yes.
It's asset stripping. What is the part of the chain, especially in South American football where it's very prevalent, what is the part of the chain that makes money? It's the sale of players to Europe.
Yep.
So where did investors look to get a handle on the ownership rights to a player?
Yeah,
they take advantage of the weak financial position of the clubs. The clubs are desperate for an injection of cash now to pay last month's salary. And so that the investors use that to get a handle, get a percentage of the player. And what it means, and there are two problems with it. One is that
we've literally got 10 seconds left, Tim. So I'm sorry. I'm going to have to stop you there.
That affect the integrity of the championships. But the main problem with it is it's money leaving football. Yeah. Football doesn't see that money, and that, as far as I'm concerned, is the big problem with it.
Well, that is the problem as well. Sorry, Tim, we're out of time, so I'm sure we'll be talking about this some more. Thank you very much indeed for talking to us. We've got loads more on Sam Allardyce, Trump and Clinton coming up in a few minutes' time. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. We had a pretty explosive first hour, Mr. Parry.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the other thing, I suppose, and I don't know whether we've made this point enough, but the reason, I mean, for all the people who think that, Sam's done nothing wrong, it's just another journalist sting, and they're all trying to bring down the England manager. What this also illustrates, right, is his willingness to use the job that he has to make an extra bit of money on the side. Which, again, is if not unprofessional, and I'm not going to call it unethical, but he shouldn't be allowed to do that as the England manager. I mean, for all of the criticism that Roy Hodgson got, I'm not aware of anything that he did. And I know he was getting a bit more than $3 million a year, but I'm not aware of anything he did outside. I mean, he took his job seriously. He did the job, as well as he thought he could. And he wasn't out sort of grubbing around for extra bunts on the side.
No, when England managers they do have too much time on their hands, but especially between groups of qualifying games. But Roy Hodgson seemed to pursue a life in the arts outside of that. He used to go reading all these philosophers' books and all that kind of stuff, for which now he's built an image which Sam Allardyce finds it easy to mock. Which is the whole thing leaves a very sour taste in the mouth, honestly, because I keep reiterating Sam Allardyce is the man at the peak of English football, and you have to have a certain way about you to if David Beckham, for instance, was England manager, you wouldn't find a stain upon him because he knows how to behave in positions of responsibility. I mean, I don't know if he was a great manager or not. I've no idea. But what I do know is...
he did have that slight blot on his copybook with Rebecca Lewis.
Well, that was an allegation about another woman.
Yeah, well, he never sued them, though, did he?
No, he didn't. And that's about relationships. This is not about relationships. This is what you've just said. This is his responsibility as England manager not to get himself into situations where he seemed to be grubbing around, trying to find more money.
And sometimes, as we often know in public life, and make no mistake, the England manager is a position in public life. It's not being a manager of Sunderland.
No,
but I mean, if Sunderland had I don't know whether Sunderland might have taken a dim view of him doing that while he was manager of Sunderland. Because it would bring the
club into disrepute.
Well, it would bring the perception that if he's advising people on getting around FA rules, they'd say, well, does that mean you're getting around FA rules while you're the manager?
Yeah, exactly.
In regard to transfers and things like that.
Exactly.
And so when you're in public office, the appearance of impropriety is often enough to lose the job.
Oh, sure, I totally agree.
And that's, I think, where we are.
Totally agree. The ball now remains firmly, or has landed firmly in the FA's court.
Yeah.
They've got to do something about it. I mean, the point is, this newspaper story started emerging about 8 o'clock this evening, was it?
No, maybe a little bit later than that, I suppose. Yeah, but certainly...
8, 9 o'clock, I was hearing about it.
Yeah.
And so the Football Association haven't responded, and they can't. I mean, literally, and... Having said that, the Daily Telegraph will have gone to the Football Association some days ago.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, absolutely. Some days ago, and said, well, this is our dossier of evidence. So, to be honest, I'm a little bit surprised that as this story has exploded tonight and it's all over the place, with the modern methods of communication, i.e. directly on text or Twitter or statements or online or social media, whatever you want to call it, there hasn't been a response yet from the Football Association.
No, but they've been quite clever, actually, and this may be down to their new, expert on public affairs and PR and everything else. Yeah. Because what they've done is that when they were approached by the Telegraph for a comment, they said that they would issue no comment, but what they would like to see is the full transcripts of all the conversations.
Well, they should have had that by now. They should have had that a couple of days ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, they know that they're going to have to basically come clean on it and give a view on it at some point.
Sure.
I mean, the Telegraph says it detailed its findings in an email to the FA yesterday morning, which set out 18 questions about its findings, including Allardyce's comments in the two meetings. However, they declined to answer any of the questions without receiving full transcripts of the conversations.
Okay, well, I'm sure the Telegraph will provide those without any problem at all. Why would they want to keep them?
Yeah.
Here's a text here. I'm sorry, it hasn't got an address on it, but it says, surely sacking Sam Allardyce would be the easy way out. Letting him carry on as England manager is the worst punishment. Now, although I don't agree with that, and I think that's said a bit tongue-in-cheek, this is the essential issue. Can Sam Allardyce now carry on the job as England manager with more qualifying games coming up with this terrible black cloud hanging over him?
Yeah.
I mean, how can you focus on the job when, as you and I know, and you've made the point clear, less than a week today, supposed to be doing a press conference. First question, Sam, did you advise a load of businessmen you'd only met a few hours earlier about how to get around the rules on third-party ownership of players?
Exactly right. And the point is, as in politics and in sometimes other jobs, when you become a bigger story than the job that you're doing, then usually it's time to go.
Alistair Campbell says the reason he had to leave the job as head of the Government Communications Network and Tony Blair, the Prime Minister's personal communications officer, had to go, he said, because I became bigger than the story of government.
No.
And at that stage, you have to cop out. And off he went.
Yeah.
I think do you remember the guy who was Gordon Brown's press officer as well?
Yeah.
Old
Damien McBride.
No. Damien McBride was his second one. The first one, when Gordon Brown was the Chancellor, was Charlie. What's his name? Wasn't it?
Oh, Charlie Whelan.
Charlie Whelan. That's right. Yeah.
Was he not caught in a sort of some kind of a weird scam that he was trying to set somebody up with?
Well, I think there was an allegation of that, but again, he said, "Look, I became bigger than the story of government. I had to go." And then Damien McBride was the same.
Yeah,
exactly absolutely right. Yeah.
Now, apparently, the debate is underway. It's on NBC in America. It's on Sky here. Lester Holt is the adjudicator of it, right?
Who is he?
Or the moderator. He's an NBC anchor. And he's because one of the criticisms of previous debates that Trump's been involved in is that he just comes out and says things and nobody ever kind of corrects him. Because apparently in one of the debates about the Republican nomination and all these other Muppets were up there.
That's right.
He said, "I was against the Iraq War," and he wasn't at the time. And there's evidence to say that at the time he was very much for it. Well, so what they've said is tonight, what they're going to try and do is if he comes out with any crap, they're going to nail him
on it
and say, "No, actually, that's not true."
No, that's not true. You said this. I mean, I love this because it happens all the time to famous people. They just think we're all idiots. Remember, Emma Thompson goes on some show. The actress who, former Cambridge graduate, the lovey and all that.
Champagne socialist.
And he sits there and tells the guy who's interviewing her, well, of course, within 10 years, the greenhouse effect on Earth will have put the temperature up by 4 degrees.
Yeah.
And it just sailed through the interview. Nobody ever stopped and said, "No, actually, we've got some evidence here saying it's going down, not going up."
Yeah.
And that's what people do. They just go on television, make statements like that. And as you quite rightly say, if the person who's interviewing them doesn't realise that doesn't add up, they get away with it.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
And I mean, the amazing build-up to this whole situation where the idea that 100 million people in America are going to watch a debate between two effectively, I mean, I'm not going to say boring, but I mean, they're politicians or one's a politician and one is a wannabe politician.
Yes.
I mean, the excitement about this is absolutely palpable. I mean, my daughter is over in America at the moment.
Yes.
And so she's actually texted me watching the debate. But I mean, the idea that the whole country is divided now between people who want Trump to be president.
Yes.
The people who hate Hillary Clinton and all the Clinton supporters who actually don't really like Hillary either.
Yes.
But can't bear the thought of Trump being involved.
Yeah. Well, actually, funny enough, in a minute, I'm going to tell you about something I've picked up over the weekend because I did a presidential campaign with Clinton.
Did you?
Clinton.
Yeah, you've never mentioned that before.
Yeah, I did one with Clinton, and I did the one with I did Reagan's second, didn't I? With Walter Mondale.
Did you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I need to tell you all about that because the campaign.
You've already told us all about that.
No. I'm going to tell you about this campaign and how it's changed so dramatically compared to previous campaigns. Tell me about that in a minute, okay?
Okay. Yeah. Apparently, Hillary keeps referring to him as Donald. Which is clearly a sort of way of trying to get under his skin.
Well, his first wife called him the Donald.
The Donald, yeah. Well, that was because her English wasn't great.
Yeah,
Ivana,
that's right, yeah.
The Donald, yeah. But she couldn't really call him that. But all Clinton's people before this started said, we expect to see a very much more kind of relaxed Donald Trump who's going to try and play by the rules. He's not going to have a go at her because his one weakness, if he has one, is his temper.
He has great delivery powers, I think, Trump. He uses his hands very expressively.
Because he's on television.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, he was trained to do that for The Apprentice.
Exactly, and he communicates with his hands. He puts his fingers together to emphasise points. It's as tiny as this, it's as big as this, all that kind of stuff. And he's very effective, in my view, as a communicator.
Well, he is.
Whether or not the information he's communicating is of any value or has any solidity, I don't know. But as an image, as a communicator, he's very good.
Yeah. Well, one of the first remarks that people are picking on right now is that she took a swipe at him immediately by saying he started his business with $40 million from his father. Trump says, my father gave me a very small amount and I built it into a great company. So, I mean, you take your pick of who's telling the truth.
Exactly, yeah.
This is Talk Sport. We've got loads more coming up. This is Talk Sport. We are at the two mics. We'll be talking to John Le Boutillier a little bit later on after the debate is over. It's going to run until about 3:30 our time. Yeah. And so it's fascinating stuff. It could decide who actually gets the White House.
Of course it could.
In just a few months' time.
They've been, in the build-up to this, they've been referring back to the very famous first televised debate between Tricky Dicky Richard Nixon and John F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
And until that happened, nobody realised the power of the image. So Tricky Dicky turns up with a very heavy growth on his face, and under the TV lights was said to be perspiring and looking angst and so. Whereas John F. Kennedy looked like he'd just coming off the beach.
And was there not also a problem because Nixon decided not to wear makeup?
Yes, that's right. Absolutely.
He basically said that's makeup's for women.
Absolutely.
And he looked because if you go, I mean, you know this being a television aficionado.
Absolutely.
Because not only did you wear makeup when you were on sports tonight, you also changed the colour of your hair.
I did, absolutely, yeah.
Because you can't go on TV without makeup.
No, you can't.
Because you look washed out and dreadful.
You do, and perspiration soaks into makeup. That's why people wear it sometimes, because under the heavy TV lights.
Yeah, right.
But what I was going to say to you was, I've been reading some political stuff in the build-up to this debate and about the presidential. So I read about a guy who's done half a dozen US presidential elections, who goes to small-town America and finds that, when we were there, whenever there was an election, people were so happy to nail boards into their grass in their gardens and say, I'm voting Trump, I'm voting Clinton, and all that.
Yeah.
This guy's been around small-town America and said there are none of those.
Yeah, right.
And when he's gone and asked people, why aren't people doing what they normally do? I'm voting Obama or I'm voting...
Although I think it depends on where you are as well, because my daughter, as I say, has just been over there. She was in Florida, and she said she saw a lot of Trump signs just down there, which, despite the fact that people think it's a kind of tourist destination, is pretty what you might call deep south.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That and you'd expect a bit of Trump down there, but in Midwest America, in Midtown America, these boards have disappeared. And when the political commentator I'm talking about went to try and find out, he said, well, the problem is that they're two extremists, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and they're both hated by members of their own party.
Yeah.
Now the problem
is they're also apparently they've got the biggest disapproval ratings of any two people running for office
ever. And he said in these small towns, imagine the town like, for instance, in First Blood. Sylvester Stallone wanders into this town, and
that's meant to be somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. I think,
exactly. And the sheriff comes out and he says, "We run a quiet town. We don't like guys like you." Hey?
Yeah, Brian Dennehy.
That's right. Yeah. We run a quiet town. We don't like people like you. Go and get a bath, and they'll take you to the city limits and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
No, you talk about those sort of towns. They have not put up any boards saying who they support because they said there's so much angst between the two political tribes that if you were found out to have voted for Trump when Trump got in, it would affect your business.
Yeah.
If you were found to have voted for Hillary and Hillary gets in, people are not going to deal with you anymore. That's how desperately
well, we've seen all the
driven apart the feelings for American the American political set in America is.
And you've seen as well the punch-ups at the various conventions and at Trump's rallies and all that kind of thing. But he's a bit like, I mean, it's a ridiculous comparison to make in a way, but a bit like Jeremy Corbyn when he goes to someone like Leeds and has 2,500 people turn up, or 10,000 people turn up. Trump's the same. You know, he had 30,000 people at some rally, and they're all very rabid about him.
Yes,
and they believe everything he said. I mean, he's just basically been pinned out by the moderator, the guy Lester Holt, because he was saying to him, "Well, how exactly are you going to bring all these jobs?" He keeps talking about bringing jobs back to America.
Yeah.
Do you remember he said he was going to get mining started again in Pennsylvania? And I mean, you know, it's hardly forward thinking, right?
No, it's not.
But they're basically he's basically being very vague about how he's going to bring these jobs back. But it's all fascinating stuff. I tell you.
Well, talk about vague, Mike. The most ridiculous comment yet is, "I will get rid of crime."
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's going to wipe crime out in America. Not sure he's going to do that.
Well, because he's also alleged that all the crime is committed by Mexicans.
Well, that's right. And he's going to send them all back.
Not entirely correct, really, has to be said. Now, have you ever heard of a guy called Stanislav Petrov? Just to sort of broaden the world reaction spectrum going on. This is a guy who apparently has a day named after him, right? Now, this was sent. He was drawn to my attention by one of our Twitterers.
Right.
I haven't got his name to hand at the moment, but it was 30 years ago. On the 26th of September. This guy saved the world from a potential nuclear disaster.
Yeah, how did this happen?
I couldn't believe this story because I don't remember it really at the time. But apparently in the early hours of the morning on 26th of September 1983, Soviet Union's early warning system detected an incoming missile strike from the US, right? The computers basically said several missiles had been launched, and the protocol from the Soviet military was basically you retaliate before they hit.
That's right.
Now, this guy was the duty officer. So he wasn't, he's not a big famous politician, wasn't a member of the Politburo. He was basically given the job of registering apparent enemy missile launches, right? Because he was the guy who happened to be on duty.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Guess what he did? He didn't report them.
Right.
Because if he had reported them to his superiors, he knew basically
Russia would have unleashed nuclear missiles on America.
Yeah, nuclear missiles on America.
Yeah.
And it was a breach of his instructions, a dereliction
how
of
did
duty.
he know that they weren't real missiles?
Well, he decided to dismiss them as a false alarm.
Right.
And he's still alive, and he's talking about it. But he's basically saying that, he knew that if he reported it, even if it was real, that it would basically be the end of the world.
Yeah. But,
so it was quite a brave decision to take.
How come he didn't get disciplined by his commissar masters for not responding?
Well, I'm not sure if he did get disciplined, actually. I mean, basically...
Well, the point is, because it didn't happen anyway, how could they discipline him?
Yeah, because, they would have had to go back through the computer system to discover that there had been something. But what he says is, at that time, in 83, which, if you remember, was the height of the Reagan...
I do.
...sort of, administrative...
It was the year of the meeting in Iceland, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was perestroika hadn't happened yet.
No, that's right.
So the Politburo guys, he says that if he had reported it up the line, nobody would have issued caution.
No.
They would have just gone.
Yeah, just gone and said it's happening. Yeah, World War III is about to start.
Yeah. He was retired with the rank of lieutenant colonel, so I guess he was never actually disciplined for it. So it came out years later.
Looks like he may have even been given a pat on the back for not starting World War III then, in a bizarre sort of way. I
mean, he basically says that when the moment came, he says, I almost froze in place. The siren howled, but I just sat there for a few seconds staring at the big black backlit red screen with the word launch on it. The system was telling me the level of reliability of the alert was high. There could be no doubt America had launched a missile. A minute later, another siren went off. The second missile was launched, then a third, then a fourth, and then a fifth. Then the computers changed their alerts from launch to missile strike. And imagine sitting in a room
and
seeing all that.
We're about to be obliterated, But in fairness, I think he must have been bright enough to have realised, hang on, there hasn't been any political attention around for the last sort of couple of days, or a couple of weeks. I don't remember us falling out with America over everything. Perhaps this could be a mistake.
Yeah.
So good job he was thinking that way. And the other thing...
He's basically said as well that in his mind, he said that he thought there was about a 50-50 chance that he was right.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
imagine that.
Do you know what the other? But do you know what the other amazing thing is? Is that quite a lot of people in Russia and in the Russian military in particular are permanently intoxicated on vodka, and that's not a rash comment. That's not a throwaway comment.
Yeah.
Life can be miserable in the Russian military, and if you're a sailor on a blinking Russian submarine, which might have been built 25 years ago or something like that. it's not a pleasant experience, and a lot of people do indulge in drinking vodka.
Yeah.
So we're just very glad that old Stanislov, is that his name?
Stanislav Petrov.
Stanislav Petrov wasn't on the grog that night and didn't act wildly in response to what turned out to be a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely astonishing stuff.
Now, tweet here, please. Text here. This comes from Richard. He says, I am currently in North Carolina. I should really be watching the presidential election, but listening to you guys rather than the presidential debate. It's gripping stuff, gents. Keep it up. Big Sam.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Now, a few people are taking issue with us taking a moral high ground, taking a moral stance on the old Sam Allardyce thing. Yeah. And what people need to remember is that neither one of us is the England manager. Yes. Neither one of us is in what you would regard as a position of public public duty, if you like. Mm-hmm. However, if, for example, we were to go off and have a secret meeting with a group of dodgy, murky businessmen who said, if we give you 400,000 quid and you give a few mentions to our company on the radio, that would be a sackable offence.
Yeah, of course it would. Yeah.
And that would be not something that we would be entitled to do, and certainly not something that we would do.
No, it's absolutely right. I mean, this is almost like sort of, I don't know. It's by proxy type employment, isn't it?
Yeah.
What we're officially going to say we're employing you for is to give some high level talks at £100,000 each to a group of investors that we represent. Okay, which it sounds to me a bit dodgy in the first place. You know what I mean? In Singapore and China and all that kind of stuff. But
which everybody knows, and I don't think I'm going to be making any enemies here. Singapore and the Far East is the base of all of the illegal betting scams, all of the corrupt.
Well,
ways of trying to influence the result of a football match, all of that.
Definitely. Not only that, China, of course, has made its ambitions to be a very powerful footballing nation as quickly as possible, very, very clear. And if that's the case, then people in China will want to acquire footballers. And if people in China want to acquire footballers and find there's a way around the third-party ownership rules, which Sam is allegedly said to have offered advice about, then it's to their advantage.
Absolutely
without shadow of a doubt.
Now, here's the first opportunity to wonder about what Mr. Trump said and when he said it, right? Yeah. Hillary Clinton has basically said that Trump once said climate change is a hoax perpetrated by the Chinese, right? Mm-hmm. He said, I did not not ever say that. Unfortunately, the tweet has now been produced from November 2012. And the tweet says, from Donald Trump, the concept of global warming was created by and for the Chinese in order to make US manufacturing non-competitive. So that's his first lie, I
somebody's
suppose.
On the ball.
Hillary's smiling quite a lot.
Camp,
He's looking a little bit uneasy, you'd have to say.
Yes, I would, yeah.
She looks quite healthy because one of the things that people said he may bring up, depending on how ruthless he gets, is her pneumonia scare. Yeah. And all of the health issues.
And her health and her collapse and all that kind of stuff. One thing I don't like is Hillary Clinton is dressed in a bright red trouser suit.
What's wrong with that?
Well, because when women go into politics and try to give the physical appearance of a man, they're giving the game away. Mrs. Thatcher never wore trousers in her life, as far as I can remember. She was a woman. She was a world leader. She wore a dress. Angela Merkel often looks like somebody who's come out of a dance in the local hop in circa 1955 because she wears such boring...
Are you sure you should be criticising people for the clothes they wear, given what you're wearing?
Well, no, what I'm wearing, I'm sitting in a radio studio, nobody can see me, but when you're on the world stage, like Hillary Clinton is, I don't understand why most women politicians want to wear trousers all the time.
Well, because, I'll tell you why, because they do an awful lot of research into it, and they will tell you, for example, the colour. They will have spent months and months and months on working out what she should wear tonight. Yes. 100 million people are watching it, and red will be the colour that they've chosen because it gives off a much more positive feel, something like that.
Yeah, maybe they will have done, but I still wish women would be bold enough to advertise, by the way, I'm a woman, I'm wearing a dress.
Just stilettos and black stockings or
don't be ridiculous, you know exactly what I'm saying.
No, I don't understand why you're criticising it.
Did you ever see Mrs. Thatcher wear trousers?
No.
No, she didn't. She said, look, no, I was brought up as well, I'm a woman, women are good at running things, and I'm just going to remind you I'm a woman by wearing a dress. Simple as that.
Well, she wore a skirt more often than a dress. Anyway.
Well, she didn't wear trousers.
There's a guy who seems to be constantly having a go, David Knight, right? He's the guy that I was referring to when I was talking about people criticising us for being on our high horses. Because he says this: Porky spent his radio life telling how he scammed freebies and the trough. Absolute hypocrisy. Porky should hand in his mic. Absolute rubbish, David. We just explained why not. And then his next one is, too busy to read out any tweets this morning because they don't agree with you. Very weak effort, Mike. Well, David, first of all, you're obviously a plank because we already addressed the tweet that you sent out. Maybe you should put a picture on your Twitter address instead of an egg. We might take you a bit more seriously. But if you've got a problem with us, by all means ring us up and we can talk it out over the air. This is Talk Sport. Talk Sport, we are the two mics. The Clinton-Trump debate is underway. 100 million people watching it in the US, probably quite a few people watching it here, but quite a few people in the States actually tweeting us to say they're very happily watching the debate with the sound down and listening to this show instead.
Yes, they are, yeah. And that's because, I suppose, the Sam Allardyce story is very big in this country, but it will have worldwide implications again.
Well, it will,
as it does. It's the biggest game in the world.
One of the things he said is that the third-party ownership thing is still rife in all different parts of the world, like in Africa, in South America, which is why we were talking to Tim Vickery a little bit earlier, because despite the fact that FIFA brought in a rule banning it, you know, some of those countries in those parts of the world are not awfully good at adhering to the rules. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I understand what you're saying. Listen, talking about sporting situations and sporting greats in particular. Arnold Palmer, of course.
Yes.
First time we've had the opportunity to reflect on the fact that he has sadly passed away.
Yeah.
The most famous golfer in the world. In the sense that he...
Well, he certainly was the biggest and most sort of recognised golfer in the world ever, wasn't he? At the time when he was doing it.
Well, as a lot of people explained today, he came on the scene at exactly the right time when television suddenly started going into colour, even in America, and America was looking for heroes after the Second World War.
Yeah.
And he seemed to fit the bill for everything. The amazing thing is, he won 7 majors, right?
Yeah.
And I think, how many's Rory McIlroy won? 4 already?
I think he's won 4 already,
yes. So you won't go down in the list of, the pantheons of...
No, I think he won something like 90-odd tournaments in total.
He won a tournament on the tour every year between 58, when he won his first major, and 71.
Yeah.
But his 7 majors, he won between 58 and 64, which is about 1 every year, isn't it? Through there.
Well, now we're talking about people like Tiger Woods, winning every major in the calendar year and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, for his legacy to have survived so many years after he won his last major in 64, to his legacy to survive another 50 years is quite remarkable.
Well, one of the reasons he was such a figure, I think, was because he was the first guy who brought television to golf. Because before Arnold Palmer, golf wasn't really televised because it wasn't very interesting.
It was
but he was this kind of barnstorming type player.
He had this swashbuckling style, didn't he?
And he had the Arnie's Army, of course, where he would walk down the fairway and all these people would be just walking behind him.
One small point that you just pick up on. I mean, I've covered Golf Open Championships. You've played a lot of golf and been to the top tournaments and all that. The only reason they have ropes down the edge of the fairways is because of Arnie's Army.
Yeah.
Before Arnold Palmer came along, anybody could wander onto the course and just watch the golf.
Yeah, and just walk behind them.
Exactly. But now because of the huge numbers now that were involved, then they started putting ropes up all over the place.
And he was also the first guy to be signed to Mark McCormick's PR company, wasn't he?
Very much so. IMG was the company, and he and Arnold Palmer and IMG and Mark McCormick all grew up together. You're absolutely right.
And he was the first guy. I was watching a sort of tribute to him on TV a little bit earlier in the day.
Yeah.
And he was on lawn mowers. He was on my dad taught me to play golf, but you need to cut the grass. And he was selling. He had clubs. I mean, I think I had a set of Arnold Palmer golf clubs at one point.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a one-man industry.
He was. He was the first guy to earn $1 million out of golf. Yeah. And that was as far back as 1967, when $1 million was an awful lot of money. Probably equivalent of about $25 million today, I would say.
Yeah, exactly.
And, a phenomenon. And very, very sad, of course, people have to pass away, but that's it when a legend like that goes. American legends, I think, are just fantastic. Elvis Presley, American legend, Frank Sinatra, Arnold Palmer, John F. Kennedy. It's just amazing, when you look back at it and you think, you know what? A bit of that history touched me because I remember, seeing Elvis Presley on television. I bought records that Frank Sinatra was on, and saw John F. Kennedy give a speech. It's amazing, really.
Yeah, it
amazing.
really is. It's a fascinating country. And talking of the debate, the tax question has come up because obviously the moderator was asking Donald Trump when he's going to release his tax returns, right?
Yes.
Because he hasn't done that yet. And he says he's under a routine audit and that they will be released soon.
Yes.
And then
been saying that for a while.
Well, the moderator said, well, actually, you can release your tax returns while they're being audited. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
And they then said, he said, no, they're going to be released once the audit is complete.
Right.
And just to say that Hillary Clinton's not been given any easier time, she came on saying she's going to deliver 10 million new jobs.
Right.
It turns out that under the plans that she's unveiled, she'd only actually create 3.2 million.
Is that right?
So, what a surprise. Politicians
what a surprise politician.
The politicians don't always tell the truth.
No, absolutely. Now, I've got something amazing to tell you.
Yeah.
You told me that, I think it's a week on Saturday or 2 weeks on Saturday, the 100th anniversary. Did you say it's the anniversary of the Battle of Hastings or something?
Yes, it
1,000 years.
Well, it's from 1066 to 2016.
Right, so what's that?
So
That's,
well, how many years is that?
1066 to 2066 would be 1,000 years. Less 50. So it's 150 years.
That's it, yeah.
Well, did you know that a group of people who are going to get involved, i.e. dress up as warriors and all that, are travelling 300 miles from York to Hastings on horse.
On horseback?
On horse.
Right. On horse?
On horses.
On horseback?
On horses, yeah.
You say on horseback?
What do you mean?
Well, you don't say on horse, do you? You say on horseback.
Yeah, I mean by horse.
By
horse on horseback, yeah. Which is the same journey that was made by King Harold before the Battle of Hastings.
Because they were all in Stamford Bridge.
Exactly, that's right. So this lot are they're literally going to trek through.
Well, I hope they're not going to come racing over my garden because
I don't know,
you know the site of where the Battle of Hastings took place is now thought to be actually on my side of this roundabout.
Well,
which is only about 200 yards from my house.
You've got to get used to it, pal. Got to get used to it.
No, I haven't got to get used to a load of people on horseback riding through my property.
I'm sorry, you can't stand in the way of the heritage of this great country.
Well, what I'm going to tell you is that I've been to it. I don't think I can't remember if I went last year, but certainly in the last couple of years, they always do a reenactment of the battle.
Right.
Inside where they thought the battleground was,
right,
which is by the Battle Abbey.
Yes.
And it's really interesting to see because they get all the Normans are dressed up, the Saxons are dressed up, and it's a great day out. And also that you can have a couple of pints while you watch it. The kids are going, so it's going to be a big thing this year.
Excellent.
So I'm going to take the family. So
very pleased.
You can come down and join us if you want.
Indeed, I would like to. Now we're skipping through a few stories here because, of course,
what
first
do you mean
half
you'd like to. That's a throwaway remark.
What?
I've just invited you down to come to watch the Battle of Hastings with me.
It's very kind.
And, you've never been invited down there, and now you're just like, I might do. Well, thanks very much.
Well, listen, I'm sorry.
Glossing over it.
I'm sorry, I'm not glossing over it. It's
Yes,
very
you
kind
are.
of you, and I appreciate the invitation.
No, I won't ask you again.
We'll give it some thought,
will you?
after the show. Now, what I was going to say is we've this first half of the show was almost totally dominated by Sam Allardyce. We've referred to the presidential election in America. Just a few of the stories we might have had a look at tonight. The national newspaper started serialising the Jamie Vardy book this morning.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jamie Vardy from Nowhere, my story, published this week and all that. And they've started. And what I found amazing was that the headline for the first one is "I like a drink and a scrap." But then he goes on to talk about that incident involving...
I like a drink and a scrap?
Yeah, seriously. I like a drink and a scrap.
God. That's shocking, isn't it?
And I thought, no, you couldn't have said that. So I started reading it, and he actually says... well, he goes on to say that, he says, England Leicester star Jamie Vardy has denied... he fears he will forever be labelled, troublesome. The striker admits he loves a drink and has had a few scraps in his time, but he insists the use of the word that he used in the casino, which involved, an allegation of racism, which he turned down, is not. He says
he's apologised for that. Hasn't
he's apologised for that.
It was a big mistake.
That's right. But the way he goes on about, I like a drink and enjoy being Jack the Lad. I've had a few scraps and I spent a night in a cell. I can be a pain in the ass, but one thing I'm not, never will be, is, a man who wants to upset other people and all that kind of stuff. I just think
it doesn't come across that way, does it?
No, I think it's such a strange headline. I like a drink and a scrap.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, who in their right mind would like fighting?
Well, lots of people do. I mean, all those Russians who went to the Euro 2016.
Yeah, but that's organised brawling,
but they
for
do
a political purpose.
No, it's not for a political purpose. They do it because they like doing it. Same way as there are still football fans that like fighting each other.
Well, I see.
And there are still, every Saturday night or every Friday night in any town or city in this country, there are people who get into fights, and they do it because they like it.
Imagine you and I saying, I tell you, let's go and have a couple of sherbets after the show, and hey, listen, if it's a really good night, let's get into a scrap.
Yeah.
So we go
No, there are people who do that.
So we go into a pub, right, the two of you, and we have a few drinks.
It wouldn't take long, would it?
Look over there. I'm going to go and accuse him of looking at me, and you go, hey, pal, you're looking at me.
Yeah.
What? And then you go, bang, and you smack him in the mouth.
People do, though.
Why would anybody do that?
I've never understood it.
No,
I've never understood it. I remember once when I was...
like a drink and a scrap.
Yeah. I remember once when I was a younger man, and I was out with my sister and one of her friends, actually. We were going to go see a movie or something. We were in Belsize Park.
Yeah.
I was about 19. And we were walking through Belsize Park, and there'd been a game on somewhere. Yeah. And some people used to come to Belsize Park, a couple of pubs after the Spurs or the Arsenal game or something. I don't know whether they were Spurs or Arsenal fans, but anyway, we were walking down. There was a road that took you down to where the cinema was.
Yes.
And there was a little sort of cut through, and there was an alleyway. And as we were walking down, I could see these guys. There was about 15 of them,
right?
All football fans, all a bit bladdery.
Sounds a bit intimidating.
So it was a bit, but I was particularly not intimidated because I had two girls with me.
Yeah, sure.
I didn't want there to be a problem.
Sure.
Anyway, so. I thought, well, we'll see if we can avoid them and go round sort of to the side. But it was clear that they were spread out all over the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so we walked through the middle of them, right? And as we got sort of halfway through, one of them just threw a punch at me for no reason.
Yeah.
And he punched me in the face.
Yeah.
And
what did you do?
Well, because I had the two girls with me, I didn't really do anything. I just said something like, well, what have you got?
Your problem,
what's the problem with you?
Yeah.
But I didn't want to get into it.
No,
because,
sure.
I didn't want to get into a fight with 15 guys.
No. And then did you get out alive?
Yeah. He literally just punched me once and walked on.
And walked on. Yeah.
And I was more shocked than anything because I was like, well, why would you do that?
I simply don't understand it. I think physical violence is so abhorrent. The last resort, obviously, the ignorant and all that. But it's not just that. It's that you read about these horrendous stories where somebody throws a punch at somebody else, they fall down on the pavement, crack their head, and they're dead. I think that there's a misrepresentation in films which is shocking. When you see a Jason Bourne film, right? What's it called? What are they called?
The Bourne Identity.
The Bourne Identity. That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And when you see on those, and the amount of physical punishment each man does to the other.
Yeah.
But they end up without even a bruise on their face.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if, for instance, Daniel Craig, you remember in the first Bond film, he ended up wrestling with some bloke in a lavatory where all the where all the sinks got broken and they were hitting each other.
It was like an old firm game.
It was, yes. And at the end of it, he came out hardly bruising his face. Frankly, if you went through that sort of physical punch, you'd be dead.
You would be.
Because your ribs would be broken, your skull would be fractured, your chin, your jaw would definitely be broken, you'd have lost teeth, you would have a ruptured liver. There's no doubt about it, And people glorify these sort of films and say, a fantastic action film and all that. No, you would be dead if you got involved in that sort of physical violence.
Yeah, absolutely
so
right.
I've always been very, very wary of getting involved, unless I know I'm going to win. But the thought of being beaten up, on the whim of some drunk in a pub is not one that I particularly savour.
No, especially if you're the drunk in the pub.
Exactly.
This is Talk Sport.
People are strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when you're alone. Women seem wicked.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. We're watching the Clinton-Trump debate, and I must say his hair is actually looking quite calm tonight, isn't it? He's obviously had it sort of patted down in some way.
I think he has,
Well, normally it's blown around all over the place.
Well, normally it's too long. I don't understand why he's never got it cut properly. It's always, there's far too much of it down the back of his collar and far too much of it over his ears, and that's why it looks like a wig.
Yeah.
But it looks like normal hair tonight,
But he's doing that thing that he does when he's speaking very sort of authoritatively, where he's,
that's right.
his, as you say, pointing his hands. And,
that's right.
He's looking very relaxed, I have to say. Now, how about this, right? I've got some great news for you.
Okay.
I've got a tweet from Derek,
right,
or a message from Derek in Pencoy.
Oh, the bog cleaner.
Yeah, do you remember there was some people getting concerned about his whereabouts?
Well, we all are,
We hadn't heard from him for a while.
That's right.
He says this: does Porky think there will be any gerrymandering in the US election debate? And does he know what it means?
Well, I know what gerrymandering means because I invented the word, basically.
No, you didn't.
Or revived
it.
You didn't. I revived it from ancient English.
You didn't
anyway.
invent it at all.
And
the word has been in many uses.
And there won't be any gerrymandering in the debate. Well, funny enough, if you were listening earlier, Derek, bog cleaner in Pencourt, Mr. Graham here pointed out the fact that the invigilator has been told to be on his alert for false and empty statements from both candidates, i.e., a claim that, well, I invented Social Security for poor people, Hillary might say, when she was the First Lady, and all that kind of stuff. That will be smacked down. If Donald Trump says, I did not accuse the Chinese of inventing what? Global warming.
Yeah, right. How about this one? Because they've got into the old the tax business and also his businesses, right? Yeah. And she's apparently said to him, I met a lot of people who were stiffed by your business, Donald, who you refused to pay. And apparently there's an architect in the audience who was never paid for a job he did for Trump, right? And so Trump says, well, maybe he didn't do a very good job. So he's a very smart guy. He's very, there are no flies on him. He's quite good at responding to these things.
I totally agree.
So anyway, we'll bring you more of that. Yeah. Now, would you like to know how you did on the predictor scenario?
Yes, please. Yes.
Last week I was the victor in no uncertain terms. And so this is the second competition, really.
Right.
So, of course, we did it on Friday, so we'll just run through these.
Okay.
The first game was Manchester United against Leicester. Now, I actually predicted Leicester would win it.
Yeah, I know.
Because I really thought they would.
So when it came to half-time and United were 4-0 up, you sort of thought that was maybe a mistake.
To be honest, I realised then that probably were going to come back.
Yes.
You actually... predicted a draw. So you're already halfway there.
Okay.
On Bournemouth against Everton, we of course both predicted an Everton win.
Yes.
Because why wouldn't you?
Yes.
So we both got that one wrong. The next one, Liverpool against Hull. I predicted a 4-1 win for Liverpool.
Yeah.
And it was 5-1. You predicted a 3-0 win for Liverpool. So we're both quite good on that.
Yeah.
Let's see what's up next. Middlesbrough against Tottenham. I said it would be 2-0 to Tottenham.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, that's what you said.
Yes.
I've got this wrong now.
Yes.
Now, you said it would be 2-0 to Tottenham.
Yes.
I said it would be 1-1. So you did well there.
So I got that right.
Stoke West Brom, I said would be 1-1. No, I said it would be 2-0 to West Brom. You said it would be 2-0 to West Brom, so we both got that wrong.
Right.
Sunderland Crystal Palace, you got that one right. I didn't. And then we go to... Manchester City Swansea, we both got that one right.
Yeah.
Arsenal Chelsea, I said would be a draw. You said would be an Arsenal win, so you did better there. West Ham Southampton, you predicted 3-1 Southampton,
right?
Which is good. I predicted 2-1 Southampton.
What was the score?
It was 3-0.
3-0. There you go. See?
And then Watford against Burnley, which was tonight. Sean Dyche, your man, did very well there, didn't he?
Yeah, Sean really won there tonight. It was a fantastic victory. Second of the season, 6 points, and I've really got to build on this one. Build on it.
Well, you predicted 2-1, which was not far off. I predicted a win for Watford. So, at the end of all of that, right, I have collated the figures here. Right scores. I got no right scores, and neither did you. The right result, you got 7, which is good.
Yes.
I only got 3.
Well, there you go. You see,
so I got 7 wrong, and you got 3 wrong.
It's all coming back.
So you got the point this week.
Yeah, all
so that
coming
makes
back.
It 1 point apiece.
Great, excellent.
So we'll have the next one coming up at the end of this week.
Excellent. Now
we should remind everybody, by the way, in case they don't already know, that we will be doing our first ever warm up officially. This Saturday.
That's
not
right.
the first time we've ever done the show.
No,
but it's the first time that they want us to take the show over and do it for the rest of the time. So
we are launching it as a fixture for this season.
Well, it's a relaunch, really, isn't it?
It's a relaunch, and it's a fixture for this season, 11 to 1. Looking forward to it very much indeed.
Yeah.
Now, I have some news for you here. You know that you could have had the opportunity to give up your smoking habit by taking up vaping, but you never did you?
I don't want to vape.
Why was that?
Well, I don't like the look of it.
Well,
whenever I see people doing it, there's an awful lot of smoke involved. I mean, literally, there's a sort of cloud around
these people. It's like
steam
almost,
And it's just...
Have you ever tried it?
Well, you know what I have tried is electronic cigarettes.
That's what I mean,
You might remember, we did a show in Birmingham once, I think it was, and I took one out and smoked it. Do you remember? Because there was no rule against it at that time.
That's right.
Most places now say if you can't smoke cigarettes, you can't vape indoors
either.
Yeah. And the problem with the electronic cigarette is that it never goes down. Because I told you, a guy sent me a load of them because we were talking about it on the air.
Yeah.
And it basically it's got a battery in the filter.
But I mean, do you inhale tobacco?
Well, no, you inhale nicotine.
That's right. Sorry, I meant nicotine. You inhale nicotine.
The point is what it's meant to do is to give you the required amount of nicotine without the tar.
Yeah, and does it?
And without... Well, I suppose it does, but I mean, for me, it was like an experiment to try.
Yeah. So it doesn't have the same effect as smoking a cigarette.
Well, no, because for me...
the same satisfaction.
Well, not really, no, because also for me, the thing about it was you didn't know if you smoke a cigarette, you finish the cigarette, you put it out.
Yes.
And then you wait a little while before you have another one.
Yes.
When I was sitting in the house, I'm smoking this thing, because it doesn't go out.
Right.
I just kept smoking it.
Just keep smoking it.
And so it's not the same...
No, same experience,
Yeah.
no. Anyway, the reason I ask is because now there is a plan to introduce synthetic alcohol.
And I think we've talked about this before.
I don't think we have, actually.
Yeah, I think we have.
And it's designed to help people quit booze in the same way that e-cigarettes are supposed to have helped people quit smoking.
But is it in a liquid form?
Well, it says the product, which is called AlcoSynth, gives the sensation of being tipsy, is the explanation I've got here from my scientific journal, but without the hangover or health complications. So it could be 100 times safer than the real thing.
Yeah. But so does it have alcohol in it then?
Well, I think there's a debate on at the moment as to whether it can be classified as synthetic or whether it's like crushed alcohol. You know what I mean, in powder form.
Yeah. Well, remember we talked about the powdered form. We were going to try and get hold of some of that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Now the Adam Smith Institute, which you and I have talked about a lot.
Yeah.
You know, The Wealth of Nations, the original book by Adam Smith, the great economist of the 19th century. They've accused the health authorities, who are very wary of this, of promoting abstinence rather than risk reduction products that could save thousands more lives each year. So what they're saying is just tell people to stop instead of going for substitutes.
But that doesn't work, does it?
No.
I mean, that's like the Just Say No campaign that Nancy Reagan did for drugs.
Yeah, yeah.
And people went, well, we don't want to say no, so that's
no,
not
exactly.
really going to work.
Regulations must be flexible and encourage new products that are safer than the vices they're competing with. It's crucial government does not stand in the way of hangover-free alcohol.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons that people do give up drinking is because the hangovers get so bad that you can't face them anymore. But we'll talk some more about that because we're out of time. This is Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics, and we'll pick a listography coming up a little bit later on. When I was saying, there hasn't really been one of those kind of moments in the debate where you go, this guy or this woman has definitely lost.
Yes.
Just remember that one with Lloyd Benson, who you might not remember, who was the vice presidential candidate up against Dan Quayle.
Oh, is he the one that said, you are no John F. Kennedy?
Yeah, when when Quayle tried to say that, he started to invoke some Kennedy
That's
thing.
right, I'm emulating.
And I'm emulating Jack. And his great quote was, I knew Jack Kennedy, I worked with Jack Kennedy, Senator, you are no Jack Kennedy.
Yeah, that's right.
And it totally killed Quayle off,
Quayle didn't even respond to it,
No.
I saw that clip quite recently, and his face just didn't change expression. He didn't know what to do.
No, exactly. So that was one of those moments. We haven't quite had one of those moments in this debate yet, but maybe we will get one.
It may come.
It's another half an hour to go.
That's
of
right.
course, yes.
Do you know what happened on this day in I think it was 1968, it might have been 1969, Abbey Road came out.
Did it?
And, of course, that was the last time the Beatles ever recorded music together, because although Let It Be subsequently came out, Let It Be was a cobbled old load of cuttings from other records.
I have to say, Abbey Road, I think, might be my favourite Beatles album.
Well, it's a terrific one. The one before it was the White Album. That's my favourite album.
There's many, aren't there? Revolver was great.
Well, Revolver was the one that changed the course of the Beatles. They went from being Help and She Loves You and Yeah, and all that to, dramatically improved musicians, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
But, when you get to the later albums, and, I'm surprised that we're talking about the Beatles so soon after my outburst a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
When I told you I was sick of the Beatles.
That's
I'm
right.
not really sick of the Beatles.
No.
I think I was just a bit short-tempered that night. But, when you think about the complexity of the albums later on, like Sgt. Pepper and Abbey Road, and the White Album, I suppose, as well, they became a better band, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely. They just suddenly changed. They, from being a pop group, they became like the world's most prolific musicians, writing incredible songs.
Yeah.
Now, talking about that era, of course, 1970s and all that, I have come across a list here of the worst cars you ever possibly could have had.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, most of these are before our time, but I do remember them. I remember working in the 70s and the 80s. You still saw some of these cars around. But they say the the worst car was the Ford Cortina, which I can't agree with. I thought the Ford
you used to have
Cortina,
one, didn't you?
I used to have one. It was my first company car at the Express. I had a turquoise Ford Cortina, and I have to say, I thought they were a great car because they were designed for salesmen who used to drive up and down motorways and sell things like hearing aids and cigarettes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I never had a problem with mine at all.
What do you mean hearing aids?
I got a lift once. So I was hitchhiking from the University of Trent home, and a bloke picked me up in a not literally picked me up, just stopped and gave me a lift in a Ford Cortina.
I didn't expect you to mean anything else.
No, exactly.
What do you think I meant?
Well, you have such a smutty mind when it comes to those sort of things.
I would never think that.
And,
no, that's nonsense. I used to hitchhike around when I was at university.
Exactly.
The quickest time I ever did from Bath to London was actually leaving the house. Right. I got a mate of mine to drop me at the motorway exit.
Yep.
As soon as I walked down the motorway, I got a truck, picked me up, dropped me on the North Circular Road. Yeah. And I think I trained to my parents' place. Okay. And 2.5 hours door to door. 2.5
hours, not bad.
Which I thought was brilliant.
Yeah, it was difficult from Nottingham because it was a cross-country route. There was no east-west motorway in those days. Right. The M62 didn't even exist. And the idea...
What about the M69 triangle?
No, it didn't. No way in the world. So you had to come on a really weird route from sort of Nottingham to Derby and Derby to Uttoxeter to Stoke and Stoke to Crewe and all that kind of stuff, you know. So you had to get about 6 lifts to get home. Right. But this chap was on the last leg of it and brought me sort of up the bit of the M6, and then he, funnily enough, he was going to Chester, and I said, what business are you in? He said, hearing aids. And it was very odd because in those days, hearing aids were the size of a box of matches, which you stuck behind your ear. These days, you can actually have them in your glasses and all sorts of things, on the wings of your glasses.
They still haven't really got the technology right, because my mother, for example, who I just showed you a picture of earlier, because I talked to her today, and she has a hearing aid because one of her ears is particularally bad. Right. But people always say, if you're in a crowded room, you can't really use it because if there's a lot of noise sort of going on around you, it basically
filter the noise.
It amplifies all of it. Yeah, so it's actually like torture.
Yeah, I see.
And I'm amazed they still haven't yet developed a proper hearing aid that works in any situation.
Well, anyway, this guy was very laid back in this Cortina. No, I appreciate your story. It's enhancing mine. Thank you
very much.
And he was chewing gum, and. I said, I said, it's very good of you to pick me up.
You don't like people chewing gum, do you?
Well, not really, no. And he said, we had a good week. I said, oh, really? What have you done? He says, but 2 big sales this week. And I thought he might have been talking about, container ships
bulk
or something
sales,
like that. Yeah. He said, hearing aids. I said, oh, hearing aids. I said, yeah. He said, what's wrong with that? I said, oh, nothing. I said, just unusual that people travel around in Cortinas up down motorways.
In those days, though, they were sort of door-to-door salesmen.
This is it, selling hearing aids. He said, this guy said, he sort of took offence. He said, well, he's still chewing his chewing gum, Where do you expect to get a hearing aid from? Yeah. And I said, well, like the hearing aid shop, if you see what I mean. Yeah. You know what I mean? Somewhere in the high street, like doctor's surgeries.
There aren't really hearing aid shops,
doctor's surgeries, I think. You have to go to a doctor's surgery and he'd send you to hospital. I think hospitals used to dispatch hearing aids, actually, And he said, no, kid, you're way behind the times, kid. He said, and anyway, he told me the process. What happens is that they advertise the hearing aid in, magazines, what were those magazines in those days? Weekend and all this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, like Titbits and all that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
well, they also had the back of newspapers, where you can buy those trousers that are not available in any shop.
That's right.
With the expandable waistline.
Yeah, that's right.
The sort of shoes that you buy as well.
No, I don't. But anyway, that's true. And then what happens is all these people cut the coupon out and they fill it in and they put it in an envelope and put a second-class stamp on it and send it to the HQ office. And then the HQ office sends out all these leads to the man in the Cortina. The problem is, he told me that most... I said, 2 sales, is that good for a week? He says, yeah, it's first class, He says, 1 sale a week would keep me going. 2's great. He says, and I've got a 3rd lined up this afternoon. I said, oh. And I said, so how come you only get 3 customers a week? He says, I don't. He said, I get 50. And I said, what happens to the rest? He said, they're all deadbeats and losers and unemployed bums who haven't got any money, who thinks that hearing aids cost 2 and 6pence. Right. And I said, and how much do hearing aids cost? He said, £30. Right. Which
it's quite a lot of money in those days.
Well, in those days, considering I was paying £7.50 a week, for my digs in Nottingham.
Yeah.
It's a month's rent.
Yeah.
So, but anyway.
Well, my mother was offered one by some guy in America.
Yeah.
Which cost $5,000.
$5,000 for a Hoover. My God.
And he wouldn't leave her alone.
Yeah. But anyway, listen, get back to these cars. So that was the Cortina. Right. Yeah. The best-selling cars of the 70s, but not necessarily the most popular. The second one was the Ford Escort.
Yeah.
Now, the third one was the Morris Marina. Remember that?
I remember
that was one of the worst cars ever.
One of my neighbours had that horrible-looking car.
Horrible car. The fourth most popular car was the Mini.
Yeah.
The fifth, the Vauxhall Viva. No, I had the Vauxhall Viva.
Yeah.
I had a Vauxhall Viva.
Yeah.
That was my first car.
I remember the shape of that,
Yeah, my first ever car. The sixth, the Austin Allegro, which was even worse than the Morris Marina.
That was another terrible car,
Now, the seventh was the Ford Capri.
Because also a lot of those cars were being manufactured by British Leyland at the time, which was constantly on strike. The Ford Capri is a classic, I'd have to say.
Oh, it was a classic car. In fact...
a mate of mine still has one.
Well, the original old Ford Capri, yeah. Beautiful car. If you had one of those...
Did they not re-release it recently? But it didn't... I've never seen one on the roads.
Yeah, they did, I think.
Or they were about
a year ago?
Yeah.
No, I think they did. I think you're right, with the old long bonnet and the fastback.
Well,
it
wasn't, but it wasn't quite as nice somehow.
No, it wasn't quite as nice, I agree. But, no, in my day, when you were about 19, there was a lad who went to one of the pubs we went to, and he had a blue Ford Capri, and it was just a dream car. You know, if you got your hands on that, your life would have been complete. It was a brilliant, brilliant car to have. Then the Austin 1100, 1300. I had an Austin 1300. Then the Ford Granada. And I mean...
I bet you'd have loved to have one of those.
Well, that was a Sweeney car, wasn't it? You know, da-da-da,
Chat it.
Da-da-da.
Chat it.
And then the Hillman and Chrysler Avenger, which again was another old wreck of a car.
A lot of those old Hillmans and Morrises and Austins were dreadful, weren't they?
Sure. Now then, I'm going to show you a picture here of what I think might have been the car that your mum and dad had, which your mother drove, and took you all over Europe in holidays. And it's a picture there, the bottom of that page.
The one on the left?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a Morris Oxford,
Is that
which was the sister car of the one we had.
Right.
We had an Austin Cambridge.
Oh, I see.
See what they did?
Yeah, I see.
Austin Cambridge, Morris Oxford.
Yeah.
And, it was an Austin Cambridge A60.
Well, there you go.
Which was a great car.
Absolutely.
Had leather seats and everything.
Absolutely.
But you know, the funniest thing was when I went to India in whatever it was, I think it was around about the early 80s. It was before they'd sort of got back into their sort of modern economy.
Yes.
And a lot of things were based on old English type things.
Oh, absolutely.
And all the cars were still like Morris Oxfords.
Well, what they did is that, you won't believe this, they dismantled the factories in this country and they shipped them out to India. And
so they were still
making,
they were basically still making that shaped car.
That's right.
In the 80s.
That's right. Absolutely right.
Amazing.
Now, the reason that I've come across this survey is because it says if you kept those cars from those days, you'd not be quids in. Because you can hire these out to film sets now for huge amounts of money if they're in good condition.
Yeah.
And, you know, programs like Heartbeat, which isn't made now, but, you know, there's lots of retro things are being made.
Yeah.
And Philip Warner, the co-founder of the Car and Classic website, said, "There's nothing wrong with a nice old Ford Cortina or equivalent. They can be fun to drive and people like to see them on the road. But it's always sensible to get a second opinion from an MOT garage. However, you can keep these as an investment and make yourself very decent income."
Absolutely. Well, down where I am in Sussex, there's quite a lot. They have quite a lot of these classic car sort of shows.
Yes.
In a field on a weekend. You know, so quite often you'll see them being driven around, and they do. I mean, if they're well kept, they've got so much chrome on them.
Yes.
They do look lovely.
That's right. The issue
it's
here.
The time, by the way.
Yes, don't worry about the time.
No, I do worry about
the
it.
issue here is that they're going to make the MOTs for these cars stiffer and stronger than for modern cars, which you can understand because they've got parts in them that are not so robust, but they fear that will put a lot of them off the road, which is a bit of a tragedy if you're thinking of saying, oh, you're going to have to crush that Ford Cortina Mark 1.
They should have a special kind of dispensation for them, shouldn't they, if they're just going to use them in a film set or something like that?
Well, yeah, but I mean, the point is, you can only keep the car, you're hiring it out for film sets and all that, but most of the time, use it as your own vehicle to take to things like, you know, classic car shows and all that kind of stuff.
Shows,
and if you can't drive it there, you can't get it there.
Well, you'd have to put it on the back of a trailer, I suppose.
Well,
it defeats the object, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does defeat the object altogether,
All right, now we've got to do listography. We haven't got time to pick it, but we're going to pick it next and maybe do it next as well, straight away, like a rapido. This is Talk Sport.
It's a wonderful night, you gotta take it from me. It's a wonderful night, come on and break it on down. It's a wonderful night, you gotta shake it from me. It's a wonderful night, come on and break it on down.
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mites. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on, of course, and we are going to be here through the night, next 3 nights. But then Saturday, we're on Talk Sport, the warm-up, from 11, I should say, 11 till 1, right? Which is going to be very interesting indeed. Now, we'll keep you updated on the Trump-Clinton debate as well. He's been accused of being a birther by her, you know, which is all the people who claimed that Barack Obama was not actually American,
right?
And he should have been disallowed from being in the Oval Office.
Claimed he was Kenyan, didn't they?
Yeah, they claimed he was actually born in Kenya and all that. And so he said apparently he was very proud of the fact that he put pressure on Obama to produce his birth certificate.
Yes.
Which is very interesting. Now, just during the break there, we decided, because we haven't got a lot of time, to choose listography, right?
Yeah.
Which we can do whenever you think you can do it. And this is from Big Fella, whose real name is Mark. He says, on Brexit night, you said that you could jointly fix the world in 15 minutes.
Yes.
I think you said that.
Yes.
That's not the sort of thing I would say.
No, okay.
It's a bit boastful for me.
Okay.
Anyway, so the choice we've made is 3 things you would do to fix the world.
Right.
Would you like a bit of time to think about it, or are you ready to go with that?
I think we should need a couple of minutes to think about that one.
All right.
Okay, to get
well, you know what?
right.
We could do it at. We're going to talk to John Le Batelier in about 10 minutes' time.
Right.
When the debate is over.
Yes.
So we could do it after that.
Yeah. Well, good idea. That's a good idea.
Okay.
Listen, talking about cars, right, which I did just now. I came across another survey, and I'm absolutely appalled. It was a survey of the UK's slowest motorways and the fastest motorways, right?
Yeah.
They say...
I bet the M1's the slowest.
Well, no, this is the amazing thing. I don't know who's done this survey or where he got it from, but it actually says that the slowest motorway is the M606 in West Yorkshire, but they say the average speed there is 24.62 miles an hour.
Really?
Now, I don't get that, because I've been on the M25 plenty of times when the average speed has been 0, right? You know?
Yeah, but I mean, I suppose what they must do is take an average, and if there's a constant rush hour, but you're moving, then that could be right, couldn't it?
Well, it could be. Now, some of these motorways you are familiar with, right?
Yeah.
So, amongst the slowest motorways, the M9 between Edinburgh and Dunblane.
Right.
Are you aware of that?
The M9 between Edinburgh and Dunblane, yes. It's a terrible road, because it's one of those roads where there's an awful lot of really bad accidents.
Right.
Partly because it's, it's a sort of very fast dual carriageway for a lot of it. But you can turn onto it. You know, whenever you've got those roads where people are doing 70, 80 miles an hour, but there is somebody kind of turning out of a side road doing 10.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Okay. Now, 3 motorways, which all connected to Manchester, are amongst the slowest. The M602 into Manchester, 26.9 miles an hour.
Right.
The M60 around Manchester, that's the Manchester Ring Road, I presume, 29 miles an hour. And the M67 into Manchester from a different direction, 30 miles an hour.
Well, it must be based on how often there is slow traffic there. I guess the thing about the M25 is, as much as they have accidents, you'd be stuck on it, and as much as it's quite slow, maybe during rush hour, a lot of the time, I mean, like when I'm on it, generally speaking, it runs pretty well. Yeah.
Well, there's more roads here that you will know of. One of the slowest is the M2 in Kent, 34.24.
Well, that was closed altogether, wasn't it, when that bridge collapsed?
That's right, absolutely. And then one you'll be very familiar with, the M8 between Glasgow and Edinburgh.
Yes.
34.09.
You used to take that every day.
Exactly.
Backwards and forwards. And, again, it's because it's such a sort of busy across the central belt of Scotland. A lot of the time you can't go very fast because there's only 2 lanes.
That's right. Now, it says one of the fastest, in fact, the fastest in the country is the M40 between London and Birmingham.
Yeah.
Now, I know that road very well indeed, because whenever I go north to go to Goodison or something like that, I always take that, and that's an average speed of 48.6 miles an hour. Now, again, I find these speed calculations amazing. It says another one of the fastest is the M25 around London.
Yeah.
39 miles an hour? Can hardly believe that.
That's not very quick, though, is it, for a motorway?
No, it's not.
I mean, if you were on the M25 doing 39, you wouldn't be happy. You'd think it was congested.
One of the fastest, the M4 from London to South Wales. You'll have done that road a few times.
Many times. Well, it's also the way to Wiltshire.
Yeah, of course it is, in Wiltshire. The M1 London to Leeds, I find that very difficult because for quite a long time, the first 3 or 4 junctions of the M1 coming off the North Circular or off the A41 or whatever, and going, they had those average speed cameras, didn't they?
Well, I mean,
for
even
years.
even now, I'll tell you how bad it was, because when we came back from rugby, I think I suffered it, and also Birmingham the previous time when we did shows up there. You come off the M6 into the M1, you loop around, and it was a 50-mile-an-hour zone for, I would say, about 20 or 30 miles.
Oh, no, it's terrible.
Narrow lanes and all that cobbling.
Yeah. The M42, Bromsgrove to Ashby de la Zouch.
Yeah.
Used to live near Bromsgrove in Redditch.
Yeah. I went to a wedding there once.
Where?
Bromsgrove.
Oh, Bromsgrove.
Yeah.
Nice place, actually. Nice
yeah,
place,
I stayed at a really nice hotel, actually.
Yes, that's right. You would have done. There are some nice ones around there. And then the M5 from West Brom to Exeter. Now, I know that as well because the M5, that bit, West Brom to Exeter, well, West Brom bit anyway, is actually not a motorway. It's more like a dual carriageway coming north, south, east, west, north, now southwest out of Birmingham.
Yeah.
Because Birmingham is such a big city, really. It uses all the motorway networks as like dual carriageways into various parts of the city, you know?
Well, again, I mean, because of my sort of, varied and unusual life,
yes,
I used to spend a lot of time on the M5 because when I first lived in Scotland,
yeah.
I used to fly down every weekend. I used to fly down to see my kids in Wiltshire.
Right.
And I'd get on a plane in Glasgow, fly to Bristol, which is the closest place, hire a car, drive to pick them up in Wiltshire, and then drive back up quite often to London. So I'd spend the time with my parents there, and sometimes drive them. I used to sometimes bring them up to Scotland, and you go from Wiltshire, you'd go M4, M5, M6 up to Scotland.
Right, okay.
Torturous journey.
Now, what was this report you were baiting me about this morning? You know, trying to tell me that
road landlords. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you about that in a minute. I've got some other news for you.
Oh,
by the way.
Yeah.
Do you know your spat that is ongoing with Liam Gallagher, which we brought up at the live show the other night?
Yes.
Do you know that he's going to give a rare insight into his career to another radio station, which won't be named?
No.
And I'm now going to blame you for this, right?
No.
Because we could have got him on here if you hadn't been so nasty to him.
Well, that's
he's going to talk to Johnny Vaughan, right? He used to work here, who coincidentally used to do the warm-up, right?
He did, yeah, that's right.
But do you know where he's doing it?
No.
He's taking a room at the Etihad Stadium in Manchester. And they're going to sell 200 tickets, right? For the event, 150 quid a time.
Yes.
He says that the proceeds are going to go to charity. Now, it's a very noble cause.
Yes.
But I'm not sure, when people say the proceeds are going to go to charity, you wonder whether all the proceeds are going to go to charity.
You wonder about the expenses aspect of it, you know what I mean? Like who's going to pay for the room and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, well, I'm sure they won't take that out of the ticket price.
Yeah,
but I'm not making any allegations against Liam Gallagher because I'm sure he's a fine, upstanding member of the community.
Yep.
But 150 quid's quite a lot of money. How much? I'd like you to work this out.
Yes.
200 tickets, £150. How much is that?
Well, how many tickets? 200.
200.
So 200 times 150. Well, 200 times 100 would be 20,000. So it's 30,000. 30,000 quid.
So do you think Liam's not going to get any of that?
Well, he doesn't need it, presumably, does he? I mean, he's a multi-millionaire, I assume, from his.
Well, I don't know about that.
Record.
I think his I don't think his solo career's gone particularly well.
Well, I don't think it has, but
then his company business is doing all right, I think.
Well, I read the other day that his clothing company, he's got a clothing company apparently, is actually turning over, healthy profits and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But
anyway, if you hadn't insulted him, we could have been on here. Is what I'm saying.
Well, I don't. Has anybody here ever made a bid to get him on and talk to him?
Well, we have.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
Many
but
times.
He wouldn't do it because in the words of his wife and manager,
doesn't need to big himself up by talking to you.
No, he doesn't want to talk to people who are just looking to get a rise out of him on Twitter.
Well,
I think were the words she used.
Yeah, I think so.
So that was your fault.
Yeah, well, I don't think it was my fault actually, but anyway, there we are.
Yeah.
Johnny Vaughan's connection with Manchester is not apparent to me, but
no, but it's for another radio station that he works for.
Yeah, but his obviously Liam Gallagher's association with the Etihad of Manchester City is very well known.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, very interesting.
Anyway, so we'll talk about the road landlords shortly, but we'll also the debate is about to finish, so we'll be talking to John Le Boutillier over in the States to get his verdicts on who won, if anyone. Trump looks to have stayed relatively composed. I don't think he lost his temper.
Well, he never does, though.
Well, no, he has done in the past. I mean, in previous debates where somebody has had a go at him, he's sometimes gone back and said something. Like the way we sometimes snap back at people.
Yes, sure.
But he hasn't done it here. So he's been quite respectful to her, I think. So I think he might not have done himself any damage at all.
Okay.
We'll soon find out. This is Talk Sport. Talk Sport. We are, of course, the two mics. There will be a podcast coming out at the moment. Looking at some of the reactions online, Trump has accused Clinton of being totally out of control at earlier events. Clinton responded by just kind of looking at him with disbelief because he also said he'd got a better temperament than Hillary Clinton. But certainly it's being said that she looks a bit more poised than him. And she also says to him, a man who can be provoked by a tweet should not have his finger near the nuclear code.
Well, she said that before, didn't she? Yeah. That's not a new quote.
Yeah, but saying it to him, which could
exactly.
provoke a different reaction, could, of course, be interesting. The debate is about to draw to a close.
Right.
But we've got John Le Boutillier, our man in the United States, who knows a little thing or two about presidential politics. We've got him here to tell us who he thinks would be described as the victor, if there is one. John, a very good morning to you.
Mike and Mike.
Yes.
I don't know which Mike I'm talking to.
Yeah, well, both of us.
To both of you, Mike.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, we've been able to... We've been able to follow it here. We're watching it. So, but it's interesting for us being in a radio studio because I've only been able to follow the reactions to things that have been said rather than watching them live. If you know what I mean, I'm watching them on a screen. They both look reasonably. They both look reasonably sort of composed to me. But tell us your impressions.
I think Hillary's had a better night. I think that she's more prepared.
Yeah.
Anticipated things better than him. He doesn't seem to know anything. He just sort of rambles on.
Right.
He seems to be. He seems rather frantic tonight. A lot of yelling.
Yeah.
And a lot of facial expressions. I don't think any of his supporters will leave him because of it. But excuse me, I don't know how many new supporters he's picking up tonight.
Yeah. Because that's the
key,
isn't it?
These undecided people, and there might be about 30%, by the way, of the voters who are still persuadable. And I think off of tonight, she's probably got a little bit of a better chance of some of them than he does.
Yeah, because that really is the key to it all, isn't it? And before the debate happened, Clinton's people were saying, we expect Donald to be much better behaved than he has been in the past, that he will attempt to keep his composure, that he'll treat Hillary with respect, because he'll get more kudos for that. It looks like that's what he's done. But in the end, if you're a neutral, and you're undecided, has he done enough to get more of them?
I don't think so, but we're going to find out in the next few days when the polling gets done. And then the same question for her: has she done enough to get more of those undecideds? And I think yes. Actually, I think if you look at this thing objectively, she knows her stuff. She smiled throughout the whole night. He never smiles. He looks flustered. He's drinking a lot of water. He's sort of snorting a lot. He seems to be nervous, but and I'm neutral. I don't want either one of them. So I'm trying to look at this thing.
That's not the definition of neutral, by the way.
Mr. Neutral.
Right.
Did he at any point, John, sort of vaguely or specifically refer to her health problems, and how did she look health-wise as the thing went on?
Well, it's still going on, and she looks fine. It never came up. The only even remote reference was when he said he's been around to some of the African-American places lately while you stayed home. And what she said was, I stayed home to prepare for the debate. And she paused and she said, and to prepare to be president. And I thought that was a good answer. She looks healthy, from a layman's point of view, for 90 minutes up on the stage under hot lights, under pressure. I don't see this lady wilting one bit. And he looks healthy, too. I don't think it's an issue. But let me say this to you guys. If between now and the election she has another health incident,
another wobble,
it could cause her to lose the election.
Yeah. Let me ask you about a couple of the incidents themselves where people, for example, he was asked about his tax return and why he hasn't released it. He said he was going to release it after an audit. The moderator said, well, you could release it now. So, again, he hasn't really moved on that. And secondly, when she had a go at him over some of the business practices and some people that he's never paid money to, will that damage him, do you think?
Not among his supporters, but I think it will hurt him among the undecideds as they hear this, if they haven't heard all this before. Most of this stuff, if you follow the campaign, which you guys do remarkably well across the way, a lot of the stuff that's said in these debates has been said by each candidate on their daily stump speeches.
Sure.
But you got to watch them to learn that stuff.
Right.
And the average voter isn't watching them.
Sure.
Tonight, where a lot of people are probably hearing this stuff for the first time, I thought she was very effective nailing him on the income tax thing.
Yeah.
I mean, really raising the questions about what's he's hiding, why he won't release the taxes. And I think it is a bit of an issue. He didn't really hit her enough on the email thing.
Right, I was going to say. I mean, and also, I mean, the email thing, and also the Clinton Foundation have been two of his biggest.
That
sort
didn't
of,
come up at all.
And he didn't
never mentioned.
Well, why not? Do you think?
Because I think he doesn't want the Trump Foundation thing brought up. That's actually worse. He's already been fined by the IRS, and there's stories coming out about him illegally using charitable money to pay legal bills. And if he opens up her can of worms, his can of worms gets open too.
Yeah.
John, I read a political comment from somebody in this country just over the weekend saying, and they're touring America now pre the election to find out what the atmosphere is, what the feeling is across America. And they saying, small town America, all those boards that you normally have nailed into the lawn and the front of your house saying who you're voting for have all disappeared because when the election's over, whoever wins is going to be so bad that you don't want to be reminded you were a supporter of the person you've just put into power.
Yeah, and there's a reverse joke about that in Washington, where everybody is a whore politically, all of a sudden when they figure out who's going to win the election, they go out and they buy the bumper sticker for their car of the winning candidate and slap it on their car as if they were for this guy or gal all along. So
And I mean,
absolutely.
In Washington, I mean, this has been the election battle that has kind of foxed all the pundits, really, hasn't it? In terms of people saying that Trump would never get this far, it's really getting down to the wire now. And as you reminded us last time, people have already started voting for each of these actual candidates. I mean, is Washington kind of in a position to really be ready for a Trump victory?
Washington is not ready for a Trump victory and is extremely discombobulated over the thought of it. And that would include, guys, the Republicans in Washington. I don't think they want to work with Trump. I don't think they can work with him, that he doesn't know anything and he's crazy. And how do you work with someone like that?
Yeah. Well, I work with someone like that every night. But, actually, that's not true. That's very unfair.
That's even true.
Trump is going to, the rumor is if Trump loses the election, he's going to follow the two mics and start his own TV network called Trump TV.
Right. Well, hopefully it's more successful. Hopefully more successful than Trump Steaks.
Yeah, and Trump Water and all this other schlock that he sells.
And Trump Air, which he took on for a bit.
He did. He took that from Eastern, didn't he? Yeah. The debate's finished now. I saw that there was a sort of tender moment as they finished, and he shook hands and patted her on the back.
I'm looking right now at the end, and Trump, I can see him over with his family, looks defeated.
Yeah.
He looks like he lost the debate. Yeah. Now they'll run the spin stuff going on now, but I've seen this guy enough over the years.
Yeah.
The facial expression is subdued.
Yeah, because
they'll try to say he won.
Yeah, because he can look very triumphalist, can't he?
Yeah.
Do you think he will?
He looks right now. I'm looking at him, guys, and he looks really. Yeah.
I agree. He's walking off there like he's the captain of the losing team.
Yeah. I mean, do you think
you look at Hillary? Hillary looks totally like I did it. And by the way, there's a lesson here. Sure, you have the same thing in England. P to the fifth squared, or P to the fifth power.
Yeah.
Prior planning precludes poor performance.
Yeah.
This woman rehearsed and practiced August and September. She did a mock debate the night before last at 9 p.m. To mimic what would happen at night, same time, to get your biological clock and all. And then she did another one this morning. He didn't do any mock debates. She was better prepared than he was.
Yeah. He probably thought he didn't have to.
Yeah. Well, I imagine. I mean, I know that he's got some very high-profile advisors, like the guy that used to run Breitbart, and he's got Roger Ailes and all that kind of thing.
Roger Ailes.
But I mean, even though those guys are powerful in their own right, he doesn't strike me as a guy that you could be an advisor to who would necessarily take any advice. If you know what I mean.
Exactly. No, I don't know what picture you're getting, but on the one I'm looking at, we're seeing Bill Clinton and Hillary shaking hands out on the stage.
Yeah.
Whereas the Trumps have left the stage. I guess they've gone to the spin room where there's TV cameras there too. But this looks like she knows she won.
Yeah.
and Trump knows he lost. Whether that's translated into anything, we'll see. But I always say this about Hillary. Hillary is at her best when her back is against the wall in the campaign, and she's got to really push it, and she did a good job. She did well tonight.
Yeah, sure. Is it any surprise that Bill Clinton is standing there front of stage with her? I mean, and how important is her daughter to her? I mean, I think her daughter's a great electoral asset.
All good.
But
it's all good. Well, I think, look, these families are assets, having the former president and a nice daughter. Yeah. And I think Trump's family's an enormous asset to him.
Really?
But in the end, it doesn't. None of that means anything. It's the gut feel that voters have of who they want. And here's the thing. You know, I think you've had it because of Brexit the same thing. There is revolution in the air in this country. Yeah. It's in England, too. It's in a lot of parts of the country. The problem with Trump is he's really not part of the revolution.
Sure.
He doesn't fit the profile of a revolutionary.
Yeah.
He's not the blue-collar guy that got laid off. He's the guy that did the laying off.
Sure.
And so for him to suddenly be leading this revolution doesn't quite fit.
No. And do you think this will be the night then that he was exposed as a guy who was a bit short on detail, a bit less presidential perhaps? And does that matter? Because, I mean, have debates been... I mean, has the presidential race been won and lost on TV in a debate? Or are there other ways of coming back?
No. Normally these things don't really change the outcome of the race or change the momentum very much. They reinforce what people already thought. Yeah. So if you like Trump, you still like him. Same with Hillary.
Right.
If you think Trump is short on details, which he has been throughout the whole campaign, you saw that again tonight.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've got some breaking news for you, John. I think you're going to be proved right here. The Time have just issued a poll of people who've been asked, over 12,000 people who have the right to vote in America, who won the debate. 92% Hillary Clinton.
Well, that's overwhelming.
Yeah.
But I think we got to wait and see some other things, and then we'll give it a few days to see where this thing goes. But any objective view of this thing was that she had the better night. She looked better. She knew her stuff, and he didn't really put any effort into it. He just showed up and yelled and interrupted. And, I don't know. It wasn't that good for him, I don't think.
Okay. Amazing. Well, John, listen, as ever, thank you for your insights, John. And we'll be talking to you again, I'm sure, in the next few days and weeks. John Leboutillier there, a former congressman himself. That's an incredible poll result, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Time magazine, 92%. Only 8% of people thought that Trump did any good. And as you said, him walking off like that, like the captain of the failed football team.
He looked like the captain of the losing teams. He's walking off, not a smile on his face. And I don't know whether this is a joke or not, but it says that the Mexican peso is rising rapidly against the dollar.
I imagine that will be a joke. Well, I don't know, though.
No, I don't think it is a joke. I mean, this threatening to build this wall and keep Mexicans out and all that must have worried them a bit.
Yeah.
But it now looks as though they think that it's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, we shall see. Fascinating times. Let's talk sport. What a great song that is.
That sounds like ELO.
It is.
Yeah?
It is ELO.
There you go.
Now, what did you tell me about who was playing at the Whitley Bay Playhouse?
Well, it was brilliant. You don't notice these things often, but I remember the last time we left the building, we went through the front because we'd seen everybody in the foyer and all that kind of stuff. There's a huge post there on the left of Roy Wood saying Move are coming there in either next week or the week after. And Move, one of my great favourite groups of my childhood, Roy Wood wrote some fantastic records, like Fire Brigade, Call the Fire Brigade, Mulberry.
Isn't it Get the Fire Brigade?
Isn't it Call the Fire Brigade? Call the Fire Brigade, Call the Fire Brigade. And then Goodbye Blackberry Way. Goodbye Blackberry Way, Call the Fire Brigade. Tonight. I'll be over tonight.
Yeah, right.
If you say
the trouble with you is, right? I just said to you,
Yeah.
What was it you told me about the fact? It was the fact that Roy Wood and the Move were coming to Whitley Bay. I didn't want to hear the entire bloody catalogue of the Move.
Oh, Kelly,
I don't want to hear that. We haven't got time. We've got 10 more minutes on the show.
Right, okay,
We've got to do listography, right?
Right, okay.
And we've chosen, because of what was suggested by Mark, 3 things you would do to fix the world.
Yes.
Do you want to have a go at the first one?
Okay, my first one would be to immediately introduce worldwide fracking to get energy out of the ground. No.
This is on the same day that the Labour Party has said
exactly.
that if they get elected, they're going to ban it.
It's almost a counter-reaction to that. They say if they get elected, they're going to ban fracking. Yeah. The Americans passed the law to allow fracking 12 years ago. The Americans are now completely independent in their energy needs. We are still massively dependent on the Middle East for oil, and massively dependent on Russia and a lot of the Eastern Bloc countries, as were, for gas. And if we opened up the fracking possibilities in this country, particularly around places like Blackpool and the Lancashire Basin and all that, we would be self-sufficient in fuel. That would revolutionise the life of everybody in this country because our fuel costs as a nation would halve.
Right.
So that for me would be the and by the way, not just for this nation, but every country in the world has fracking opportunities to revolutionise their economies, and that it's all very well for Labour to say.
Well, how's it going to fix the world then?
Because it could eradicate poverty to a large extent.
Really?
Yes,
how?
Definitely. By giving people cheap energy to be able to build.
But it's not any cheaper, though, is it?
It's much, much cheaper.
It's not, because they still have to, the process of getting it out of the ground, are you saying is a lot cheaper than getting oil? No,
what I'm saying, it is cheaper than oil, but,
really.
but the main benefit is that you can obtain energy by fracking locally. You don't have to ship it in from Saudi Arabia.
Right.
Because
they can start digging away underneath your house.
Absolutely. Almost every country in the world has fracking possibilities.
So you want people to start fracking under your house, do you?
I don't care. But fracking has got to be the future for the provision of energy in the world.
Okay.
And we should have a worldwide moratorium now on getting it going everywhere.
Okay.
It's already revolutionised America. Why can't it revolutionise the rest of the world?
Yeah. Right. Well, you're joining Donald Trump's campaign or something?
No. Not at all.
Well, mine's a little bit more ethereal than that.
Okay.
My first one. I want to ban all arms manufacturing.
But you see, that is an airy-fairy,
no, it's not airy-fairy.
wishy-washy.
Oh, what, you think introducing fracking to every part of the world is actually going to happen?
Well, I think it's something that could improve people's lives. But banning...
Well, no, it couldn't. Banning arms manufacture could improve a lot of people's lives. For example, they would not be dropping barrel bombs in Syria.
Do you think everybody would accord to it?
That's not the point. The question is 3 things you would do to fix the world.
Sound like an unreconstituted 1950s hippie.
No, you're not capable of any kind of philosophical thought, are you?
Yeah, well, go on then.
Yeah, so anyway, I just think if anybody wanted to fight with each other, instead of dropping bombs on each other or shooting people with guns, they'd have to fight with kung fu sticks.
Right, okay.
And then that way the world would become a much better place to live in.
Right, okay.
Okay, what's your second one?
Right, my second one is that the whole of the world should be taught to speak English. Because in that way, we would all be able to communicate much, much better. No, not just because we're English.
No, really.
But because English is the dominant language of the world. Now, it's all very well saying,
it actually will not be very soon. It will be either Spanish or Chinese.
No, I was going to say, you're going to tell me that, more people speak Cantonese, more people speak Spanish in South America. Yeah. I don't care. The dominant language of those who are in positions to influence what goes on in the world is English. And if everybody, and by the way, all properly brought up children in China speak English anyway. Yeah, they're being taught English.
I see. What do you mean by properly brought up?
Well, I mean, parents who realise that the world is a bigger place than just China. Children in India speak English. Children in China speak English. Children in most of the Latin American countries speak English because people realise. Yes, they do.
That's rubbish.
I've been there. You haven't been there.
No,
I've been there.
So you're telling me that you go to Brazil and the kids in the barrio speak English?
I'm telling you, kids that I've met them in Argentina, in Chile, in Uruguay, they speak English. Believe me, they do, because they realise to get on in life you've got to speak English. Now, if everybody spoke English, then we wouldn't have, a lack of communication. I'm telling you, if the leaders... I'm telling you, Jimmy, that if the leaders of Russia and America had been able to converse in one language, there would never have been a Cold War.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to say this. Another thing that you can do to fix the world is vote for Hillary Clinton. Mm-hmm. That's my second one.
Well, I can see where you're coming from there, although that really is the worst of two
I don't
options.
like Hillary Clinton, by the way.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
That's my second one. A lot shorter than yours. You can go for your third one now.
Yeah. Now, my third one is to ban all space exploration and the International Space, what's it called?
Agency?
Space Centre. No, the thing that's floating around up there,
the space station.
Space station, yeah.
You want to ban that?
Well, it's useless.
Well, it's not useless.
It's completely
You're
useless.
such a flat earther.
No. It's completely useless. I don't know why we bother spending money on... The only thing space is good for is to put satellites into to improve communications in this country.
Oh, right. So apart from that, then? So apart from that, then?
What do you mean?
So would you ban satellites, then?
No.
Well, how do you think the satellites get up there?
They're launched on rockets. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, all this idiotic stuff about going to Mars, idiotic stuff about, restarting the Challenger programme, the space shuttle and all that. You'd get rid of all that. You waste billions and billions and billions of dollars, which you could spend on, for instance, irrigating deserts where people are struggling for water and food. Okay?
They've irrigated deserts in the past.
Yeah, well, you can irrigate a few more and use the money that you won't be spending on the International Space Station.
Yeah, OK. Well, we've only got a short time, a couple of minutes left for me to come up with a third thing to do to improve the world.
Well, come on, then, what is it?
And I think what would be the best thing to do to improve the world would actually be to somehow reduce what I would regard as the reliance on religion. In some way, shape or form. Yeah. Because religion has been the cause of an awful lot of problems in the world. And while you might not be able to eradicate all religions, clearly you need to do something to stop, people
That's another very wishy one, that,
it's not.
It is very wishy-washy.
But this is...
ban all arms sales. Oh, yeah. Oh, ban all religions.
I haven't said ban anything.
Well, so you want to eradicate religion?
Well, I'm talking about religion.
That's banning it, isn't it?
No, I'm not talking about banning anything in terms of religion. You can't ban a religion. You can't ban people from believing in something. That's totalitarian and sort of thing you would ask for.
For the arms sales, by the way, so when one very strong company, let's take China, who's got, billions of people, literally, when they decide, well, OK, we haven't got any weapons, so what we'll do is we'll just send an army of 200,000 people across the border. They haven't got any weapons to defend themselves.
Well, they have to fight with sticks.
Well, yeah, it's so ridiculous, but I mean, OK.
Yeah, so what, some of the things you come out with are not ridiculous?
No, what I've come out with are practical, can be done. No problem at all.
Really?
Yeah,
OK. All right, well, I mean, as ever, you live in your own little world and think you're brilliant. I live in my world and think you're not brilliant. So, we'll go from there. Ooh. Now, coming up, of course, we've got lots more to talk about the rest of the week. Sam Allardyce and the revelations, I'm sure, will become very, very much front page.
You're right.
And back page news for quite a few days. And we'll bring you all those details. Ask Porky tomorrow night. So if you haven't ever had a problem solved by Mr. Parry, that's when you should get it done. You can hashtag that Ask Porky and send it in to us on Twitter. Don't forget to follow the Two Mics at the Two Mics on Twitter and on YouTube. Just look for Two Mics TV.
Put my hand on it. I did not see any of the questions. I was not cheating. I'm an honourable man.
Yeah.
And I massively resent, and your damned incompetence, Ollie, has put this question mark over my best ever performance.
Yeah.
You scumbag.
It's a shocking
3-inch petrol. But the other thing I found out, which was absolutely fascinating, is that not only has Poldark got a stand-in actor for the shots of him riding away across Cornwall, you see what I mean? But the horse has got a stand-in horse.
Stand-in horse?
Yeah.